The thin man pressed the pillow harder against Raymond's face. His arms trembled not from effort, but from something else entirely. Raymond's legs kicked against the motel bed, his fingers clawing at the sheets, at the air, at nothing. The thin man leaned closer and whispered through clenched teeth, "You should have kept your mouth shut, accountant. Now your wife gets to wonder forever." Outside room 9, a desert wind howled against the walls of the Desert Wind Motel, and somewhere in the darkness, a little boy named Marcus Cole, just 7 years old, watched through a crack in the supply closet door, too terrified to scream, too young to understand that this moment would haunt him for the next 31 years. Subscribe to our channel now and follow this story until the very end. Drop a comment telling us which city you are watching from so we can see how far this story travels. Now, let us begin. Marcus Cole had spent 31 years trying to forget that night. He had buried it beneath 2 decades of marriage, beneath the birth of his daughter, beneath oil changes and mortgage payments and soccer games and hospital visits. He had buried it so deep that sometimes he convinced himself it never happened at all, that he had dreamed it, that his 7-year-old mind had invented a monster in the dark. But standing in the cracked parking lot of the Desert Wind Motel at 58 years old, with his 8-year-old daughter Lily holding his hand, Marcus felt the memory clawing its way back to the surface like something buried alive. "Daddy, why are you shaking?" He looked down at his hand. She was right. He was trembling. "It's cold, sweetheart." "It's 90 degrees. Marcus forced a smile. "Then I guess I'm just excited to see Grandpa's old place." But that was a lie. Walter Cole had been dead for 6 months, and Marcus hadn't shed a single tear. How could he mourn a father who had never explained what happened in room 9? How could he grieve a man who had looked his 7-year-old son in the eyes the morning after and said, "You didn't see anything. You were dreaming. Forget it. Forget everything." And Marcus had tried. God help him, he had tried. "Can I explore?" Lily asked, already pulling toward the row of faded doors. "Stay where I can see you." She ran off her sneakers, kicking up dust, her laughter echoing against walls that hadn't heard joy in decades. Marcus watched her disappear around the corner of the office building, and for a moment he saw himself at that age, running through this same courtyard, helping his mother fold towels, sneaking popsicles from the lobby freezer. Before the night, everything changed. His phone buzzed. A text from his brother-in-law, Danny. "You really going back there after everything?" Marcus typed back, "I have to. Lily needs a future. That means selling this place." Danny's response came quick. "Some places shouldn't be sold. Some places should be burned." Marcus stared at the message. Danny had been Elena's brother, and when Elena died 3 years ago, Danny had become something like family. He was the only person besides Marcus who knew the truth about Walter Cole. The only person Marcus had ever told about that night. "Daddy, come look." Lily's voice pulled him back. He pocketed the phone and walked toward the row of rooms, counting the doors out of habit. Room 1, Room 2, Room 3. The numbers climbed, the paint more faded with each step. Room 7, Room 8, then nothing. A long stretch of wall, a gutter that dipped at an odd angle, a vent that seemed to lead nowhere. Then Room 10. Marcus stopped breathing. "Daddy, where's Room 9? He couldn't answer. His throat had closed. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears, feel it in his fingertips, taste it in the back of his mouth like copper and fear. "Daddy? Go back to the truck." "But now?" Lily flinched at his tone. He had never spoken to her like that, not once in 8 years. But she didn't argue. She just looked at him with those big brown eyes, Elena's eyes, and walked slowly back across the parking lot. Marcus waited until she was inside the truck before he approached the wall. He placed his palm against it. The surface was rough, uneven, like someone had patched it in a hurry years ago. Beneath the paint, he could feel the outline of something. A frame. A door frame. His father had sealed Room 9. Why, the question had haunted Marcus for 3 decades. And now standing here with his hand against the hidden door, he realized he had never actually wanted the answer. He had wanted the question to stay buried. He had wanted to live his whole life without knowing what really happened that night. But Elena was gone. His daughter needed a future, and the past was demanding to be heard. "I know you're in there," Marcus whispered to the wall. "I've always known." The wind picked up, carrying dust and the smell of old memories. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, and Marcus Cole made a decision that would change everything. He was going to open Room 9. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He had set up a cot in the motel office for himself and an air mattress for Lily. She had fallen asleep within minutes, exhausted from the drive, with her stuffed elephant tucked under her chin. But Marcus lay awake, staring at the water-stained ceiling, listening to the building settle and creak around him. Every sound made him flinch. Every shadow made him remember. He had been 7 years old. It was September. His mother had gone to Reno to visit her sister, leaving Marcus alone with his father for the weekend. He remembered being excited at first. Dad never let him stay up late when Mom was around. Dad never let him eat ice cream for dinner. But that Friday night, everything changed. A guest had checked in around sunset. Marcus remembered watching through the office window as a man in a brown jacket walked to room 9, a duffel bag over his shoulder. The man had looked nervous. He kept glancing over his shoulder, checking the parking lot like he expected someone to be following him. "Who's that?" Marcus had asked. His father's face had gone pale. "Nobody. Go to your room." But now, Marcus had gone, but he hadn't stayed. Instead, he had snuck out through the back and hidden in the supply closet near room 9. He didn't know why. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was that feeling kids get when they know something is wrong, but don't have the words for it. He had watched through a crack in the door as a black car pulled into the parking lot around midnight. 2 men got out. One was heavy-set, walking with the confidence of someone who had done bad things before. The other was thin, almost skeletal, with movements that reminded Marcus of a praying mantis. They knocked on room 9. The man in the brown jacket, Raymond Marcus would later learn, opened the door. "Where are the files?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "The files, Raymond. The ones you stole from the Silver Creek audit." "I didn't steal anything. The heavy-set man pushed inside. Marcus heard shouting, furniture breaking. Then a sound he would never forget, the dull thump of a fist against flesh, followed by a scream that was cut short. The thin man had stayed in the doorway, keeping watch. At one point, he turned and looked directly at the supply closet. Marcus had held his breath, certain he had been seen. But the thin man just smiled a cold, empty smile and turned back to watch his partner work. When it was over, the 2 men left. They didn't take Raymond's body. They didn't take his duffel bag. They just walked to their car, got in, and drove away like they had just finished a routine errand. Marcus had stayed in that closet until sunrise, too afraid to move. When his father found him the next morning, Walter Cole didn't ask what Marcus had seen. He didn't offer comfort or explanation. He just looked at his son with those hard, tired eyes and said 5 words that would echo through Marcus's entire life. "You were dreaming. Forget it." And then Walter had sealed room 9 Sadua. Marcus sat up on the cot, breathing hard. The memory was too vivid, too real. He could smell the dust from that closet. He could feel the splinters in his palms from gripping the wooden slats. He could hear Raymond's scream cut short like a song stopped mid-note. He looked at Lily sleeping peacefully and felt something shift inside him. Elena had been like that. Peaceful. Even at the end, when the cancer had taken everything else, she had kept that quiet strength. On her last day, she had grabbed Marcus's hand and said, "Promise me you'll take care of Lily. And Marcus, don't let the silence win. Whatever you've been carrying, put it down. It's too heavy." He hadn't understood then. He thought she was talking about grief, about moving on. But now, standing in his father's motel with a sealed room 20 feet away, he understood. Elena had known. Somehow, she had always known he was carrying something that went deeper than sadness. "I'm going to open it," Marcus said to the darkness. "I'm going to find out what really happened." He got up quietly, found a flashlight in his father's desk, and walked outside. The night was cool, the desert air sharp with the smell of sagebrush. Marcus crossed the courtyard to the space between room 8 and room 10. In the moonlight, he could see it more clearly now, the patched concrete, the painted-over frame, the slight depression where a doorknob had once been. He ran his hand along the edge until he found a seam. Then he went back to the office, found a crowbar in the maintenance closet, and returned. The first strike echoed across the empty motel like a gunshot. Marcus froze, waiting for Lily to wake up, waiting for someone to come running, but there was only silence. He struck again, and again. The patched concrete began to crack, revealing layers of paint and plaster beneath. After 20 minutes, he had cleared enough to see the door, brown weathered with a rusted 9, hanging by a single nail. Marcus stood there, crowbar in hand, heart pounding. This was it. The moment he had been running from his entire life. He thought about Lily. He thought about Elena. He thought about all the years he had spent pretending that night never happened, pretending his father was a good man, pretending the screams were just dreams. Then he thought about Raymond Wells, a man who had checked in and never checked out, a man whose family had probably spent decades wondering what happened to him, a man who deserved more than to be forgotten behind a wall of concrete and lies. Marcus reached for the doorknob. It turned. The smell hit him first. Not decay, nothing that obvious, just age, dust. The musty, thick air of a room that hadn't been opened in decades. Marcus stepped inside, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Everything was exactly as he remembered. The bed still made sheets pulled tight like someone was expecting a guest. The TV an old cathode ray model with rabbit ears. The brown jacket hanging on the back of a chair. And on the nightstand, a styrofoam cup with dried coffee residue and a newspaper dated September 15th, 1998. Marcus's legs went weak. He sat down on the edge of the bed trying to process what he was seeing. This wasn't a crime scene. There was no body, no blood, no sign of the violence he had witnessed as a child. But someone had been here. Someone had left their belongings behind. And someone had sealed this room like a tomb. He picked up the newspaper. The headline was mundane. Local casino development moves forward despite opposition. But it was the date that made Marcus's hands shake. September 15th, 1998. 3 days before the night he had hidden in the supply closet. 3 days before he watched two men drag Raymond Wells into darkness. "What the hell happened here?" Marcus whispered. He started searching. The closet held two shirts still on hangers like someone had planned to stay for a while. A shaving kit sat on the bathroom counter razor still in its case. In the nightstand drawer, he found a Bible, a room service menu, and an envelope. The envelope was thick, sealed with tape that had yellowed with old age. On the front, in handwriting he didn't recognize, were two words, "Open if." Open if what? The sentence was incomplete, like whoever wrote it had been interrupted. Marcus tore it open. Inside were documents, dozens of them. Bank statements showing wire transfers of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Signed contracts with names he didn't recognize. And at the back, a handwritten note, "My name is Raymond Wells. I am a forensic accountant with the Nevada State Auditor's Office. If you are reading this, I am either dead or in hiding. The documents in this envelope prove that the Silver Creek Casino development is a front for money laundering. Mayor Douglas Bennett, Senator Richard Crane, and construction executive Vincent Mallory are all implicated. They have already killed one auditor who got too close. I came to this motel because I thought I would be safe. I was wrong. They know where I am. If I don't make it out, please get this to the FBI. Tell my wife Sarah I love her. Tell my son Michael I'm sorry I missed his birthday. And whoever you are, be careful. These men don't leave witnesses." Marcus read the note 3 times. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Raymond Wells had been a whistleblower. He had uncovered corruption at the highest levels of Nevada politics. And he had been killed for it right here in room 9 while Marcus watched through a crack in a closet door. But if Raymond was dead, where was his body? Marcus kept searching. Under the bed, he found a duffel bag filled with more documents, more evidence. At the very bottom, wrapped in a t-shirt, was a small cassette recorder. He pressed play. Static. Then breathing. Then a voice calm. Calm at first, then increasingly terrified. Day 3. It's September 18th. They found me. I don't know how, but they found me. There's a black car in the parking lot. 2 men. They've been sitting there since noon. The motel owner, Walter, he knows something's wrong. I can see it in his face. He won't look at me. I asked him to call the police, but he said it wouldn't help. He said these men own the police. I have to get out. Tonight, I'll leave through the back, cut across the desert, try to reach the highway. If I don't make it, I'm leaving this tape behind, along with everything else. Whoever finds this, please don't let them bury me twice. Don't let them erase what I found. My wife's name is Sarah Wells. She lives in Pahrump. My son's name is Michael. He's 9 years old. He has my eyes. Tell them I love them. Tell them I tried." The tape went silent for a moment. Then Marcus heard something that made his blood run cold. Footsteps. The sound of a door being kicked open. Raymond's voice high with panic. "No, wait, please!" Then static. Marcus sat on the bed, clutching the recorder, breathing hard. Raymond had tried to escape. He had left everything behind: his clothes, his evidence, his final words, hoping someone would find them. But the men had found him first, and Marcus's father had watched it happen, had probably helped cover it up, had sealed this room and spent the next 26 years pretending it didn't exist. "Why?" Marcus said to the empty room. "Why didn't you do something?" But even as he asked the question, he knew the answer. Fear. The same fear that had kept Marcus silent for 31 years. The same fear that made him bury that night beneath decades of denial. His father hadn't been evil. He had been a coward, and in his cowardice he had become complicit in something monstrous. Marcus looked at the documents spread across the bed, at the cassette recorder in his hand, at the room that had been waiting for someone to find it. Raymond Wells had left behind a voice, a truth, a plea, and now Marcus had a choice. He could seal the room, back up, walk away, sell the motel, and pretend none of this ever happened. That's what his father would have done. That's what his father did do. Or he could do what Raymond asked. He could tell the truth. The sun was coming up by the time Marcus finished going through everything. His eyes burned. His back ached, but his mind was clearer than it had been in years. He walked outside and sat on the curb watching the sky turn from black to purple to pink. The desert was waking up lizards scurrying across the rocks, birds calling to each other in the distance. "Daddy?" He turned. Lily was standing in the doorway of the office, her stuffed elephant dangling from one hand. "What are you doing out here?" Marcus hesitated. "How do you explain something like this to an 8-year-old? How do you tell your daughter that her grandfather was a coward, that her father witnessed a murder, that this motel is built on lies and bones?" "I found something," he said finally. "Something Grandpa hid a long time ago." Lily walked over and sat down next to him. "Is it bad?" "Yes." "Are you scared?" Marcus looked at her, this little girl who had lost her mother, who had never complained, who had held his hand through the worst days of his life. "I was," he said, "for a long time, but not anymore." "Why not?" He put his arm around her. "Because your mom taught me something. She said the things we're most afraid of usually just need someone to shine a light on them. Then they're not so scary anymore." Lily leaned into him. "So you're going to shine a light?" "Yeah, sweetheart, I think I am." They sat there together, watching the sunrise paint the desert in shades of gold and red. Then Marcus's phone rang. "Unknown number," he answered. "Marcus Cole." The voice on the other end was cold, controlled, or familiar in a way that made Marcus's skin crawl. "I understand you've been doing some renovations at your father's motel." Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. "Who is this? Someone who remembers you. You were 7 years old, hiding in a supply closet. I turned and looked right at you. Do you remember? The thin man? The praying mantis. The one who had smiled at Marcus through the crack in the door." "I remember." "Good. Then you know what we're capable of. Here's some advice free of charge. Seal that room back up. Take your daughter. Leave Nevada and never come back. Because if you open this again, if you try to be a hero, we'll make sure you disappear. Just like Raymond. Just like your father would have if he hadn't learned to keep his mouth shut." The line went dead. Marcus sat frozen, phone still pressed to his ear. They were still watching. After all these years, they were still watching. He looked at Lily, who was tracing patterns in the dust with her finger, humming a song Elena used to sing to her. For a moment, he considered doing what the voice said. Sealing the room. Running. Keeping his daughter safe. But then he remembered Raymond's voice on the tape. Terrified, but determined. Pleading with whoever found him to not let the truth die. He remembered Elena on her last day. Don't let the silence win. And he remembered something his father had said to him once years ago when Marcus had asked why he never talked about the past. "Some doors should stay closed, son, because once you open them, you can never go back." Walter Cole had spent his whole life keeping doors closed, and it had killed him slowly from the inside out, eaten away by guilt and fear and secrets. Marcus wasn't going to make the same mistake. He stood up, took Lily's hand, and walked back toward the office. "Where are we going, Daddy?" "To make some phone calls." "To who?" Marcus thought about the documents in room 9, the names, the evidence, the web of corruption that had been hiding in plain sight for nearly 3 decades. To the people who need to know the truth. 3 hours later, Marcus was sitting in the Copper Ridge Sheriff's office facing a deputy who looked like he had seen too much and cared too little. "Let me get this straight," Deputy Warren said, leaning back in his chair. "You found a hidden room in your dead father's motel. In this room you discovered evidence of a murder that happened 26 years ago. And you think this murder was committed by men working for a now-deceased state senator and a mayor who died in 2015. "I didn't say murder, I said disappearance. Raymond Wells was a forensic accountant. He uncovered evidence of embezzlement and money laundering in the Silver Creek Casino project. He came to my father's motel to hide. 3 days later, 2 men showed up. I watched them through a crack in a door. I was 7 years old." Deputy Warren's expression didn't change. "And you waited 31 years to report this." "I was a child. My father told me I was dreaming. I spent my whole life believing him." "So what changed?" Marcus pulled out the documents, the cassette recorder, the photograph of Raymond Wells that had been tucked inside the envelope. "I found proof." For the next hour, Deputy Warren examined everything. He listened to the tape twice, made notes, and placed 2 phone calls to people Marcus couldn't hear. Finally, he set down his pen and looked at Marcus with something that might have been respect. "This is a lot to process." "I know. The men you described, if they're who I think they are, they're not people you want to cross. Vincent Mallory died in prison, but his son Tommy took over the family's operations. He's not as powerful as his father was, but he's twice as mean. Tommy Mallory. You know him. Marcus shook his head. But the name triggered something, a memory from the night in the closet. The heavy-set man calling out to the thin one, "Tommy, we're done here. Let's go." Tommy. The thin man's name was Tommy. He was there, Marcus said. The night Raymond disappeared, Tommy Mallory was one of the men who came to the motel. Deputy Warren went still. You're sure? I'll never forget his face. The deputy was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone. I need to make some calls. Federal calls. This is bigger than Copper Ridge. Da-chumj. Lily was coloring at the table in the lobby when Marcus came out. She had found some crayons somewhere and was drawing on the back of old missing persons flyers. The irony wasn't lost on him. How did it go? She asked without looking up. I told them what I know. Now we wait. Are the bad guys going to get in trouble? Marcus sat down across from her. I hope so. Mom always said the truth catches up to people, even when they think they got away. He smiled. Your mom was pretty smart. She said you were brave, even when you didn't feel brave. Marcus felt his throat tighten. She said that, Lily nodded, still coloring. She said you had something you were carrying, something heavy. She said one day you'd put it down and you'd feel like you could fly. Marcus blinked back tears. Elena had known. Of course she had known. She had always been able to see through him, to the scared little boy hiding in a closet, to the man who had spent decades running from a single night. I think today might be that day, he said. Lily looked up and smiled. Then maybe we should celebrate. Can we get ice cream? In a minute. There's one more thing I have to do first. He walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot. A black SUV had pulled in while he was talking to the deputy. It was parked at the far end, engine running, windows tinted. His heart rate spiked. But he didn't look away. You want to scare me, he thought. You're 31 years too late. He pulled out his phone and called the one person he knew would understand. Danny picked up on the second ring. How did it go? I told them everything. The sheriff is calling the FBI. Marcus, that's... Danny paused. Are you sure you know what you're doing? These people don't play around? I know. There's a car outside the sheriff's office right now. Black SUV tinted windows. Probably Tommy Mallory's guys. Jesus, Marcus, you need to get Lily somewhere safe. I know. I'm going to send her to you. Can you pick her up? Of course, but what about you? Marcus watched the SUV. It hadn't moved. I'm going to stay. Finish what I started. Danny was quiet for a long moment. Elena would be proud of you. You know that, right? I hope so. She would. She always said you were stronger than you knew. She said one day you'd prove it. Marcus's eyes burned. Take care of my girl, Danny. With my life. He hung up and turned to Lily. Sweetheart, I need you to do something for me. Uncle Danny is going to pick you up. You're going to stay with him for a few days. Lily's face fell. What about you? I have to take care of some things here. Important things. The bad guys? Yes. She stood up and walked over to him, her little arms wrapped around his waist, squeezing tight. Be careful, Daddy. I will. Promise? He knelt down and looked her in the eyes. I promise, and Lily, whatever happens, I need you to know something. Your mom and I, we loved you more than anything, more than our own lives. And everything I'm doing right now, I'm doing so you can have a future without secrets, without fear. Okay? She nodded, her bottom lip trembling. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart. Now go get your things. Uncle Danny will be here soon. An hour later, Marcus watched Danny's truck disappear down the highway, Lily's small hand waving from the passenger window until the vehicle was just a speck on the horizon. Then he turned and walked back inside the sheriff's office. Deputy Warren was waiting for him along with two men in dark suits who hadn't been there before. FBI Marcus guessed from the way they carried themselves. Mr. Cole, one of them said, I'm Agent Reynolds. We've reviewed the materials you provided. We have some questions. I have answers. They talked for 4 hours. Marcus told them everything the night in the closet, the two men, the black car, his father's silence, the years of denial, the discovery of Room 9. He walked them through the documents. So explained the connections, played them the tape. When he was done, Agent Reynolds leaned back and exchanged a look with his partner. This is significant. The Silver Creek case was officially closed in 2003, but we always suspected there was more to it. The lead auditor's disappearance was ruled an accident, ran off the road into a ravine, body never recovered. But if what you're saying is true, It's true. I watched them take him. I was 7 years old. Reynolds nodded slowly. We're going to need to examine the motel, room 9 specifically, and we're going to need to bring in some people for questioning. Tommy Mallory, among others. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. For the first time in 31 years, he could breathe. There's something else, he said. The car that's been following me. Black SUV, no plates? I think it's Mallory's men. Reynolds' expression hardened. We'll handle it. And the motel, my father's place. For now, it's a crime scene. We'll have forensics out there by morning. Marcus nodded. He should have felt scared. These were dangerous people, and he had just painted a target on his back. But all he felt was relief. The truth was finally out, and whatever happened next, at least, he wouldn't be carrying it alone anymore. That night, Marcus drove back to the Desert Wind Motel alone. The black SUV was gone, but he knew they were still watching. Somewhere. Somehow. He parked in front of room 9 and sat there for a long time, staring at the door that had been sealed for 26 years. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You made a mistake today, a big one. But it's not too late to fix it. Leave Nevada. Forget what you found. We'll let you walk away. This is your only warning. Marcus read the message twice. Then he deleted it. He got out of the truck and walked to room 9. The door was still open from earlier yellow police tape now stretched across the entrance. He ducked under it and stepped inside. The room looked different in the moonlight. Less like a crime scene and more like a memorial. The bed where Raymond had slept. The chair where he had written his final notes. The recorder where he had left his voice behind. Marcus picked up the photograph of Raymond Wells. A young man, maybe 35, with kind eyes and a nervous smile. A man who had tried to do the right thing and paid for it with everything he had. I'm going to finish what you started, Marcus said to the photograph. I promise. He set it back on the nightstand and walked outside. The desert stretched endlessly before him, dark and vast and full of secrets. But for the first time, Marcus didn't feel small. He didn't feel scared. He felt ready. Whatever came next, the investigation, the trial, the danger, he would face it. Not because he wasn't afraid, but because some things were worth being afraid of. Some truths were worth dying for. And some rooms, no matter how long they stayed sealed, were always meant to be opened. Marcus looked up at the stars, and somewhere out there, he hoped Elena was watching. He hoped she was proud. He hoped she could see that he had finally put it down, the weight he had been carrying for 31 years. And he hoped wherever Raymond Wells was now, he could finally rest. Because someone had heard him, someone had listened, and someone was going to make sure the world knew his name. Dusk. The next morning, the FBI arrived at the Desert Wind Motel. 6 vehicles, including a forensics van and a mobile command unit. Agent Reynolds directed the operation, but it was clear this had become bigger than anyone expected. Marcus stood outside the office watching them work. They photographed everything in room 9. They took samples from the carpet, the bed, the bathroom. They cataloged every document, every piece of evidence Raymond had left behind. Around noon, Reynolds approached him. We found something. Marcus's heart skipped. What? Under the floorboards. There's a crawl space beneath room 9. Looks like it was sealed the same time as the door. What's in it? Reynolds hesitated. You might want to come see for yourself. They walked to the room together. A section of floor had been pulled up, revealing a dark space beneath. Marcus knelt down and shone his flashlight inside. His breath caught. Bones. Human bones partially covered by decades of dust and debris. Is that we won't know for sure until the forensic analysis is complete, but based on the clothing remnants, the size of the skeleton, the timeline, yes, we believe this is Raymond Wells. Marcus sat back on his heels, stunned. Raymond hadn't escaped. He hadn't made it to the desert. He had died right here in this room, and someone had hidden his body beneath the floor. My father's... Marcus said, his voice hollow. My father knew. He sealed this room with Raymond's body inside. Reynolds put a hand on his shoulder. We don't know that yet. Your father could have been threatened, coerced, until we have more evidence. I need to get out of here. Marcus stood and walked outside, his legs unsteady. The sun was too bright. The air was too hot. Everything felt wrong. He had come here looking for answers, but he hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected to find Raymond's grave beneath his father's motel. What else had Walter Cole been hiding, and how deep did the lies really go? Marcus leaned against his truck and pulled out his phone. He stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed a message to Danny. They found a body. The response came immediately. Where? Under room 9. It's Raymond Wells. He never left. He's been there the whole time. Danny called instead of texting. Marcus, are you okay? No. His voice cracked. My father buried a man under his motel. He looked me in the eye and told me I was dreaming, and the whole time there was a body 20 feet from where I slept. Your father was a coward, Marcus, but he wasn't a killer. How do you know? Because I knew Walter. He was weak, not evil. If he helped cover this up, it's because someone made him. Someone threatened him. Maybe threatened you and your mom. Marcus closed his eyes. It was the only explanation that made any sense. Walter Cole had been many things absent cold secretive, but he had never been violent. He had never been cruel. He had just been afraid. Like father, like son. What do I do now? Marcus asked. You keep going. You see this through. Raymond's family deserves to know what happened, and you deserve to finally be free of this. What if I can't? What if this breaks me? Danny was quiet for a moment. Then Elena used to say that the things that break us are the same things that make us stronger. You just have to survive the breaking first. Marcus wiped his eye. I miss her. I know, I miss her too. But she's still with you, Marcus, in Lily, in the man you're becoming. She'd be so proud of you right now. Thanks, Danny. Call me if you need anything, and Marcus, be careful. These people have killed before. They won't hesitate to do it again. I know. He hung up and looked back at the motel. The FBI agents were still working, still gathering evidence, still uncovering the truth that had been buried for 26 years. And somewhere out there, Tommy Mallory was watching, waiting, planning. Marcus didn't know when the confrontation would come, but he knew it was coming. Men like Tommy didn't walk away from their secrets. They protected them. With violence. With fear. With whatever it took. But Marcus wasn't running anymore. He had spent 31 years hiding from this moment. Hiding from the truth about his father. Hiding from the memory of that night. No more. Whatever came next, he would face it. For Raymond. For Elena. For Lily. And for the 7-year-old boy who had never stopped being scared. Who had finally found the courage to step out of the closet and into the light. That evening, Marcus received a call from a number he didn't recognize. He almost didn't answer, but something told him he should. Mr. Cole, this is Sarah Wells. Marcus's heart stopped. Raymond's wife. The woman from the note. The woman who had spent 26 years not knowing what happened to her husband. Mrs. Wells, how did you... The FBI contacted me. They told me what you found. Her voice was thick, like she had been crying for hours. They told me about the room, about the remains. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. You gave me something I thought I'd never have. An answer. Marcus leaned against the motel wall, emotions flooding through him. For 26 years, Sarah continued, I didn't know if Raymond was alive or dead. If he had left us or been taken from us. I used to lie awake at night imagining every possibility. Every horrible possibility, but not knowing was worse than all of them. He loved you. In the tape he left behind, he said to tell you he loved you, that he was sorry about Michael's birthday. Sarah made a sound half laugh, half sob. Michael's 9th birthday. Raymond missed it because he was hiding in your father's motel. I was so angry at him for not being there. I didn't know he was trying to stay alive. He was a brave man. He was a stubborn man. He couldn't let it go, the corruption, the lies. He said if he didn't expose it, no one would. And he was right, but it cost him everything. It cost you everything, too. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Mr. Cole, I'd like to come to Nevada. I'd like to see the room where my husband spent his last days. Would that be possible? Of course, whenever you're ready. And Mr. Cole, thank you for opening that door, for not letting him stay buried. After she hung up, Marcus stood in the growing darkness, phone pressed against his chest. He had done the right thing. He knew that now. No matter what happened next, no matter what dangers still lurked, he had done what Raymond asked. He had told the truth. And sometimes, that was all you could do. 3 days later, Sarah Wells arrived at the Desert Wind Motel. She was 76 years old, white-haired and slight, but with a strength in her eyes that reminded Marcus of Elena. She had driven herself from Pahrump 4 hours through the desert alone. I wanted to see it, she said, when Marcus asked why she hadn't brought anyone. Just me and him, one last time. Marcus walked her to room 9. The FBI had finished their work, but the room remained as it was, a time capsule, a memorial, a grave. Sarah stood in the doorway for a long moment just looking. Then she stepped inside. She touched the jacket on the chair. She sat on the edge of the bed. She picked up the newspaper from 1998 and held it against her heart. Marcus gave her space. He waited outside, watching the sun dip toward the mountains. When she finally emerged, her eyes were red, but her expression was peaceful. "He was scared," she said. "But he wasn't alone. The room, it felt like he was still there, still waiting for me to find him. He left the tape for you, for Michael. He wanted you to know he never stopped loving you." Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a small box. "This is the last birthday card he sent Michael, before he disappeared. I've kept it all these years. I'd like to leave it in the room, if that's okay." "Of course." She walked back inside and placed the box on the nightstand next to the photograph of Raymond that Marcus had found. "Rest now, my love," she whispered. "It's over. You can finally rest." Michael Wells arrived the next day. He was 53 now, a high school teacher with gray at his temples and a quiet intensity that reminded Marcus of the photograph of his father. He had driven through the night from Reno, unable to wait. "I've been waiting my whole life for this," he said as they stood outside room 9. "And now that I'm here, I don't know if I can go in." "Take your time." Michael stared at the door. "He missed my 9th birthday. I was so angry. For years I was angry. I thought he had abandoned us. Thought he loved his job more than his family. He loved you. That was the last thing he said on the tape. Tell my son Michael I'm sorry I missed his birthday." Michael's jaw tightened. 26 years. I spent 26 years hating a man who was trying to protect me. "You didn't know." "I should have known. I should have believed in him." Michael finally stepped through the door. Marcus watched him move through the room, touching the same things his mother had touched, reading the same words his father had written. When he emerged, he was crying. "I have a daughter," he said. "She's 8. Her name is Elena." Marcus felt a chill. "Elena. After my mother's best friend. She died young, I heard. Cancer." Marcus's throat closed. The universe was strange. Connections everywhere, threads weaving through time, linking lives in ways no one could predict. "I lost my wife to cancer," he said quietly. "Her name was Elena, too." Michael looked at him with something like recognition. "Then you understand." "I do." They stood in silence for a moment, two men bound by loss and truth, by fathers who had failed them and legacies they were still learning to carry. "What happens now?" Michael asked. "The FBI is building a case. Tommy Mallory is still out there, but they're closing in. Your father's testimony, the documents, the tape, it's enough to reopen everything." "And the motel." Marcus looked at the building. The faded sign, the cracked parking lot, the room that had held so many secrets for so long. "I was going to sell it. But now, I don't know, it feels like it's supposed to be something else, something more." Michael nodded slowly. "My father died here. But he also lived here for 3 days trying to do the right thing. That means something. It means everything." They shook hands and Michael drove away. But his words stayed with Marcus long after the dust had settled. This place was supposed to be something else. Something more. And for the first time since arriving at the Desert Wind Motel, Marcus began to see what that might be. 2 weeks after Michael Wells drove away from the Desert Wind Motel, Marcus received a phone call that changed everything. It was 11:43 at night. Lily was asleep at Danny's house in Henderson, safe and unaware of the danger circling her father. Marcus had been lying on the cot in the motel office, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. His phone lit up with a number he didn't recognize. He answered anyway. "Marcus Cole." The voice was female, young, and trembling. "My name is Jennifer Mallory. I'm Tommy's daughter, and I need to talk to you before he kills us both." Marcus sat up so fast he knocked over the lamp on the desk. "How did you get this number?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is that my father knows you talked to the FBI. He knows they found Raymond Wells, and he's planning something bad." "Why are you telling me this?" Jennifer was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. "Because I'm tired of being afraid. Because my father is a monster, and I've spent my whole life pretending he wasn't. Because I have a little girl, and I don't want her to grow up the way I did." Marcus's mind was racing. Tommy Mallory's own daughter reaching out in the middle of the night. It could be a trap. It probably was a trap. But something in her voice made him pause. "Where are you?" "I can't tell you that. Not yet. But I have information. Documents my father keeps in a safe at his house. Records of payments, names of people he's bribed, details of what really happened in 1998. If I can get them to you, why not go to the FBI yourself?" "Because the FBI has leaks. My father has people everywhere. The moment I walk into a federal building, he'll know, and then my daughter and I are dead." Marcus closed his eyes. This was insane. This was exactly the kind of situation that got people killed. But then he thought about Raymond Wells buried under a floor for 26 years. He thought about Sarah spending decades not knowing if her husband was alive or dead. He thought about Michael growing up hating a father who had actually been trying to protect him. "What do you need from me?" "A meeting, somewhere public, somewhere my father's men can't get to us without being seen." "When?" "Tomorrow, noon. There's a diner in Boulder City called Rosie's. I'll be in the back booth wearing a blue jacket. If you're not there by 12:15, I'm gone." "I'll be there." Jennifer exhaled. "Mr. Cole, thank you. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I swear I'm not like him. I never was." The line went dead. Marcus sat in the darkness for a long time, phone clutched in his hand, heart pounding. He should call Agent Reynolds. He should let the professionals handle this. He should stay out of it and let the system work. But the system had failed Raymond Wells. The system had let Tommy Mallory walk free for 26 years. The system was slow and careful and full of leaks. Sometimes you had to step outside the system. Sometimes you had to take the risk yourself. Marcus made his decision. He would go to Boulder City, he would meet Jennifer Mallory, and he would find out what she knew. But first, he needed to make sure Lily was safe. He called Danny. "It's midnight, Marcus. What's wrong?" "I need you to take Lily somewhere else, somewhere no one knows about. Not your house, not any place connected to me or you." Danny's voice sharpened. "What happened?" "I got a call. Tommy Mallory's daughter. She wants to meet. She says she has information." "And you believe her?" "I don't know, but I have to find out." "Marcus, this could be a trap. You know that, right?" "I know. That's why I need Lily far away. If something happens to me..." "Don't talk like that." "Danny, please, just do this for me. Take her to your cabin in Utah, the one Elena and I stayed at for our anniversary. No one knows about that place." Danny was quiet for a moment. "You're really going to do this?" "I have to." "Why? You already gave the FBI everything. Let them handle it." Marcus thought about the question. Why was he doing this? Why couldn't he just walk away? Because Raymond Wells trusted someone to finish what he started, and for 26 years, no one did. My father didn't. The police didn't. The FBI didn't. I'm not going to be another person who walks away. Danny sighed. Elena was right about you. What do you mean? She always said you were braver than you knew. I just wish you weren't proving it by walking into a lion's den. Take care of my girl, Danny. Always. Marcus hung up and started preparing for the meeting. The next morning at 10:45, Marcus pulled into Boulder City. The drive had taken just over an hour, but it felt longer. Every mile he expected to see a black SUV in his rearview mirror. Every car that passed made his hands tighten on the wheel. Rosie's Diner was a small place on the main drag, sandwiched between a hardware store and a laundromat. Marcus parked across the street and watched the entrance for 15 minutes before going in. At 11:58, he pushed through the door. The diner was half full. Truckers at the counter, a family with 2 kids in a corner booth, an elderly couple sharing a piece of pie, normal people living normal lives unaware that a man was about to meet the daughter of a killer. Marcus scanned the room. Back booth blue jacket. There she was. Jennifer Mallory was younger than he expected. Maybe 35, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in weeks. She was holding a coffee cup with both hands, and when she saw Marcus approaching, something like relief flickered across her face. You came. I said I would. He slid into the seat across from her. A waitress appeared immediately. Just coffee, Marcus said. Same here, Jennifer added, though her cup was still full. The waitress left. Jennifer leaned forward. I don't have much time. My father thinks I'm at a spa in Sedona. I told him I needed a mental health break. He bought it because he's never cared enough to check. Tell me what you know. Jennifer reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive. She slid it across the table. Everything is on here. Bank records, wire transfers, names of judges and cops and politicians who took money from my father's organization, and something else. What? A recording from 1998, the night Raymond Wells was killed. Marcus felt his blood go cold. A recording. My father kept it. Insurance, he called it. If anyone ever tried to turn on him, he had proof that they were all involved. What he didn't know is that I found it 3 years ago. I've been holding on to it, waiting for the right moment. Why now? Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. Because my daughter is 7 years old, the same age you were when you hid in that closet. And last week, my father told me he wants to start training her, teaching her the business, making her into what he is. Her voice broke. I can't let that happen. I won't let that happen. Even if it means destroying my own father, I will not let him touch my daughter. Marcus understood. God, did he understand? The desperate need to protect your child from the darkness. The willingness to risk everything for their safety. What do you want in return? Immunity for me and my daughter. I want the FBI to guarantee that we won't be prosecuted for anything on that drive. And I want witness protection. New names, new lives, somewhere my father can never find us. I can't promise that. I'm not FBI. No, but you have their ear. You're the one who opened this whole thing up. They'll listen to you. Marcus picked up the flash drive. It was small and ordinary, but it held the power to bring down an empire. How do I know this is real? You don't, but I'm asking you to trust me. The same way Raymond Wells trusted your father, the same way you trusted your daughter with your brother-in-law. Marcus stared at her. How do you know about that? I know a lot of things, Mr. Cole. My father has had people watching you since the day you arrived at that motel. I know where your daughter is. I know Danny drove her to Utah last night. I know you didn't sleep at all before coming here. Fear crept up Marcus's spine. Are you threatening me? No, I'm showing you that I could have used this information against you, but I didn't. I'm not my father. I'm trying to prove that to you. They stared at each other across the table. There's something else, Jennifer said quietly. Something you need to know about that night in 1998. Something about your father. What about him? He didn't just hide the body. He tried to save Raymond Wells. He begged my father to let him go. He said he would do anything, keep any secret, as long as they didn't kill an innocent man. Marcus's throat tightened. What? My father laughed at him. He said there was no such thing as innocent. And then he made your father watch while they finished it. He told Walter that if he ever talked, they would do the same thing to you, to his 7-year-old son. Tears burned in Marcus's eyes. His father hadn't been a willing participant. He had tried to stop it. He had tried to save Raymond's life, and he had spent the rest of his life carrying that guilt, that terror, that impossible choice. Your father was a coward, Jennifer said gently, but he wasn't a monster. He was just a man who was more afraid of losing his son than he was of living with the truth. Marcus couldn't speak. Everything he thought he knew about Walter Cole was shifting, rearranging itself into something more complicated, more painful, more human. Take the drive, Jennifer said. Give it to the FBI. End this. For your father. For Raymond Wells. For all of us. She stood up and dropped a 20 on the table. I have to go. If my father finds out I met with you. Wait. How do I contact you? You don't. I'll contact you. When it's safe. She walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Mr. Cole, your daughter is beautiful. She looks just like her mother. Then she was gone. Marcus sat alone in the booth, flash drive clutched in his hand, trying to process everything he had just learned. His father had tried to save Raymond Wells. His father had been terrorized into silence. His father had spent 26 years living in fear, not out of cowardice, but out of love. Marcus wiped his eyes and pulled out his phone. He called Agent Reynolds. I have something you need to see. 2 hours later, Marcus was sitting in an FBI field office in Las Vegas, watching Agent Reynolds' face change as he reviewed the contents of the flash drive. Where did you get this? Tommy Mallory's daughter. Reynolds looked up sharply. Jennifer Mallory contacted you. This morning, she wants immunity and witness protection in exchange for testimony. It's time to... And you believe her. I believe she's terrified of her father. I believe she wants to protect her daughter. I believe the recordings on that drive are real. Reynolds turned back to the screen. The recording was playing the audio slightly distorted but unmistakable. Tommy Mallory's voice young and cold giving orders. Another man screaming. The sound of a struggle, then silence. This is Raymond Wells, Reynolds said quietly. This is his murder. Yes. And Tommy Mallory recorded it himself. Insurance, Jennifer called it. He kept it to make sure no one could ever turn on him without going down themselves. Reynolds sat back in his chair. This changes everything. With this recording and the documents Jennifer provided, we have enough to arrest Tommy Mallory today. And not just him. Half the names on this list are still active in Nevada politics. So do it. Arrest him. It's not that simple. We need to verify the authenticity of the recordings. We need to locate Jennifer and get her formal statement. We need to make sure this isn't some kind of trap or setup. How long? A few days, maybe a week. Marcus shook his head. I don't have a week. Tommy Mallory knows I'm involved. His daughter said he's had people watching me since I arrived at the motel. Every day that passes is another day he can plan something. We'll put you under protection. I don't want protection. I want this over. Reynolds leaned forward. Marcus, I understand your frustration, but we've been trying to get Tommy Mallory for 20 years. We can't blow this because we moved too fast. If the case falls apart on a technicality, he walks. And then you and your daughter are in more danger than ever. Marcus knew Reynolds was right. He hated it, but he knew it. Fine, a week, but I want updates every day, and I want to know the moment you're ready to move. You'll be the first call I make. Marcus stood to leave, then paused at the door. There's something else. Jennifer told me something about my father, about the night Raymond Wells was killed. He told Reynolds what Jennifer had said, about Walter trying to save Raymond, about Tommy forcing him to watch, about the threats against Marcus's life. Reynolds listened without interrupting. That matches some intelligence we've gathered over the years, he said when Marcus finished. We always suspected your father was coerced rather than complicit, but we could never prove it. He was a victim too. All these years I thought he was guilty, but he was just trying to protect me. Your father made choices, Marcus, difficult choices, but in the end, he chose to keep you safe. That's not nothing. Marcus nodded and walked out of the building. The Las Vegas sun was brutal, but he barely felt it. His mind was spinning with everything he had learned, everything that had changed in the past few hours. His father had tried to be a hero, and when he failed, he had become a prisoner of his own fear, just like Marcus had been. But not anymore. 4 days later, everything fell apart. Marcus was at the motel cleaning out the office when his phone rang. It was 6:23 in the morning, too early for good news. Marcus, it's Reynolds. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Jennifer Mallory is dead. The world tilted. Marcus grabbed the edge of the desk to steady himself. What? They found her body this morning in a parking garage in Reno. Single gunshot wound to the head, made to look like a suicide, but our forensics team says otherwise. Her daughter. What about her daughter? Missing. We have every agent in the state looking for her, but so far, nothing. Marcus felt sick. Jennifer had trusted him. She had taken an enormous risk to do the right thing. And now she was dead. It was Tommy. He found out. We believe so. He has an alibi for last night, but that doesn't mean anything. He never does his own dirty work. So what happens now? Without Jennifer's testimony. We still have the flash drive. The recordings are being authenticated as we speak. If they hold up, we can still move forward. And the little girl, huh? Reynolds paused. We're doing everything we can. Marcus hung up and sat down heavily on the floor. His hands were shaking. His chest felt tight. A woman was dead because she had tried to help him. A child was missing, probably taken by the same men who had killed her mother. He thought about Lily safe in Utah with Danny. He thought about how easily it could have been her. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You should have listened. This is what happens to people who don't know when to walk away. Your daughter is next. Marcus stared at the message, fear and rage battling inside him. Then he did something he had never done in his life. He called Tommy Mallory directly. The number had been in Jennifer's documents. A private line that only family and close associates knew. Marcus dialed it before he could talk himself out of it. Tommy answered on the third ring. Well, well, Marcus Cole. I was wondering when you'd reach out. Where's the girl? What girl? Jennifer's daughter. Where is she? Tommy laughed. It was a cold, empty sound. I have no idea what you're talking about. My daughter took her own life last night. Tragic, really. She was always unstable. You killed her. Careful, Marcus. That's a serious accusation, and we both know you don't have any proof. I have the flash drive. I have the recordings. I have everything. Tommy was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Harder. Darker. Let me tell you something about evidence, Marcus. Evidence can disappear. Witnesses can recant. FBI agents can be reassigned. And little girls can have accidents. Marcus's blood turned to ice. If you touch my daughter... I'm not going to touch your daughter. Not if you're smart. Not if you do exactly what I tell you. What do you want? I want you to go to the FBI and tell them you made a mistake. Tell them the flash drive was fake. Tell them Jennifer Mallory was a disturbed woman who fed you lies because she hated her father. Make this go away and your daughter lives. Refuse and, well, Utah is beautiful this time of year. Lots of places for accidents to happen. Marcus's mind was racing. Tommy knew where Lily was. He had known this whole time. You're bluffing. Your brother-in-law, Danny, drove a silver Toyota Tacoma to a cabin outside of Moab 2 days ago. License plate number 7 Charlie Victor 391 Hotel. The cabin has a red door and a wind chime shaped like a hummingbird on the front porch. Your daughter sleeps in the back bedroom, second window from the left. She keeps a stuffed elephant on her pillow. Marcus couldn't breathe. Still think I'm bluffing. If I do what you want, how do I know you'll leave her alone? You don't, but you know what happens if you don't. And Marcus, I'm not like those old-timers who made promises and broke them. When I say I'll hurt someone, I mean it. Ask my daughter. Oh wait, you can't. The line went dead. Marcus stood frozen, phone still pressed to his ear, terror coursing through him. He had two choices. Betray everything he had worked for and let Tommy Mallory escape justice. Or refuse and risk losing the only thing in the world that mattered to him. It wasn't a choice at all. He called Danny. Get Lily out of there right now. What, Marcus? What's going on? Tommy Mallory knows where you are. He described the cabin, the truck, everything. He knows which window Lily sleeps in. You have to move. Now. Danny didn't argue. Marcus could hear him moving, could hear Lily's sleepy voice asking what was happening. Where do we go? Anywhere. Just get on the road. I'll call you when I have a plan. Marcus, are you okay? No, but I will be. He hung up and called Agent Reynolds. Tommy Mallory just threatened my daughter. He knows exactly where she is. He's trying to blackmail me into recanting my testimony. Reynolds' voice went sharp. Tell me everything. Marcus repeated the conversation word for word. When he finished, Reynolds was already giving orders to someone in the background. We're sending agents to your brother-in-law's location right now. We're also putting a protective detail on the motel. Tommy just made a huge mistake. How? He contacted you directly and made explicit threats. If we can prove that call happened, it's witness tampering and intimidation. That alone is enough to arrest him. He'll deny it. It was a private number, no recording. Leave that to us. Marcus, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Marcus thought about it. Trust hadn't worked out well for him lately. Jennifer had trusted him, and now she was dead. His father had trusted that silence would keep them safe, and it had destroyed him. But what choice did he have? I trust you, but if anything happens to my daughter, nothing is going to happen to your daughter. I promise you that. Marcus hung up and waited. The next 48 hours were the longest of his life. Danny drove through the night, switching vehicles twice, taking routes that made no logical sense. Marcus stayed at the motel surrounded by FBI agents who watched every car that passed, every shadow that moved. He didn't sleep. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Jennifer Mallory's face. He heard Tommy's cold laugh. He imagined Lily in the back of a black SUV, scared and alone. On the second day, Reynolds called with news. We found her. Lily. Jennifer's daughter. She's safe. One of Tommy's men was holding her in a house outside of Sparks. We got there before they could move her. Marcus collapsed into a chair, relief flooding through him. Thank God. There's more. The man we arrested is talking. He's giving us everything. Names, dates, locations. He says he's willing to testify against Tommy in exchange for protection. Why would he do that? Because Tommy was planning to kill him too, clean up loose ends. The man realized he was next and decided to flip before it was too late. Marcus laughed a strange, broken sound. Tommy's own paranoia is bringing him down. It's poetic, isn't it? The recording on the flash drive has been authenticated. Combined with this new witness and the documents Jennifer provided, we have more than enough to move. When? Tonight, we're arresting Tommy Mallory at 9 o'clock. Marcus looked at his watch. 7 hours. 7 hours until the man who had haunted his nightmares for 31 years would finally face justice. I want to be there. That's not a good idea. I don't care. I've earned this. I want to see his face when he realizes it's over. Reynolds was quiet for a moment. Fine, but you stay in the car. You don't approach, you don't engage, you don't do anything except watch. Understood. Understood. At 8:45 that night, Marcus sat in the back of an FBI sedan parked outside Tommy Mallory's compound. The property was massive, surrounded by walls and cameras and armed guards. It looked like a fortress, but fortresses could fall. At exactly 9 o'clock, a convoy of black SUVs rolled through the front gate. Marcus watched as agents poured out weapons drawn, shouting commands. He watched as Tommy's guards surrendered one by one, hands raised, faces pale with shock. And then he watched as Tommy Mallory himself was led out the front door in handcuffs. The man looked smaller than Marcus had imagined. Older. More fragile. He was wearing a bathrobe and slippers, his thin frame shaking with... with either cold or fear or rage. Their eyes met across the driveway. Tommy's face twisted into something ugly. He lunged toward the car where Marcus was sitting, but the agents held him back. "You think this is over?" Tommy screamed. "You think you've won? I have friends everywhere. I'll be out by morning, and when I am, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for your daughter. I'm coming for everyone you've ever loved." Marcus rolled down the window. "My name is Marcus Cole. 31 years ago, you murdered a man named Raymond Wells in my father's motel. You made my father hide the body and threatened to kill me if he ever talked. You spent the rest of your life thinking you got away with it." He leaned closer. "You didn't." Tommy's face went white. "Enjoy prison," Marcus said. "I hear the food is terrible." The agents dragged Tommy away, still screaming threats that grew fainter with distance. Marcus rolled up the window and closed his eyes. It was over. After 31 years, it was finally over. 3 days later, Marcus picked up Lily from a safe house in Arizona. She ran to him the moment she saw him, throwing her arms around his waist so hard she nearly knocked him over. "Daddy, I missed you so much." "I missed you too, sweetheart, more than you'll ever know." Danny stood in the doorway, looking exhausted, but relieved. "You did it," he said. "You actually did it." "We did it, all of us." Danny shook his head. "No, this was you. Elena always said you had it in you. Turns out she was right." Marcus hugged him tight. "Thank you for keeping her safe. That's what family does." On the drive back to Nevada, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, her stuffed elephant tucked under her chin. Marcus watched her in the rearview mirror, this small, perfect person who had given him the courage to face his demons. His phone buzzed with a text from Reynolds. "Tommy Mallory denied bail. Trial set for March. You'll be called as a witness." Marcus typed back, "I'll be there."
She is.
He looked at the road ahead, at the desert stretching endlessly toward the horizon. For the first time in 31 years, he felt free. But there was still work to do. Raymond Wells had been found. His killer had been arrested. His family finally had answers. But the Desert Wind Motel still stood on that forgotten stretch of highway. And Marcus was beginning to understand that some places weren't meant to be sold. Some places were meant to be transformed. He thought about Room 9, about the secrets it had held for so long, about the voice on the tape begging to be heard, and he thought about all the other voices out there, the ones who had been silenced, the ones who had been forgotten, the ones who were still waiting for someone to listen. Maybe the motel could be something more than a crime scene. Maybe it could be a sanctuary, a place where the truth came to rest, a place where the forgotten were finally remembered. Marcus didn't know exactly what it would look like yet, but he knew with a certainty that surprised him that this was what he was supposed to do. He looked at Lily in the rearview mirror and smiled. "Hey, sweetheart?" She stirred sleepily. "Yeah, Daddy." "How would you feel about living in a motel for a while?" She yawned. "Would I get my own room?" "You'd get any room you want." "Even the one with the secrets?" Marcus thought about it. "Especially that one. But we're going to turn it into something different. Something good." "Like what?" "Like a place where people can tell their stories, where they can finally be heard." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that made Marcus's heart swell. "Mommy would like that." "Yeah," he said softly. "I think she would." 6 weeks after Tommy Mallory's arrest, Marcus stood in the courtyard of the Desert Wind Motel with a hammer in his hand and a decision to make. The FBI had released the property 3 days earlier. The investigation was complete. Raymond Wells's remains had been properly buried in a cemetery in Pahrump, his family finally able to give him the funeral he deserved 26 years too late. The forensics teams had packed up their equipment and driven away, leaving behind yellow tape and empty rooms and a silence that felt different now. Lighter somehow, like the building itself could finally breathe. Danny had driven down from Henderson to help with the cleanup. He stood next to Marcus' arms crossed, staring at the faded sign that still read Desert Wind Motel in letters that had once been blue but were now the color of forgotten things. "So what's the plan?" Danny asked. Marcus didn't answer right away. He was looking at Room 9. The door was open, now had been open since the night he first broke through the wall. Sunlight poured into the space that had been dark for so long. "I'm not selling it." Danny turned to him. "You're not serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." "Marcus, this place is a crime scene. A man was buried under the floor. Your father spent 26 years hiding a murder. Why would you want to keep it?" Marcus set down the hammer and faced his brother-in-law. "Because Elena told me not to let the silence win. Because Raymond Wells left a tape asking someone to tell his story. Because there are people out there right now, Danny, carrying secrets that are eating them alive. Truths they're afraid to speak. And maybe, just maybe, this place can be somewhere they finally feel safe enough to let it out." Danny stared at him for a long moment. Then he shook his head and laughed. You sound like her, you know that, Elena. She had the same crazy ideas, the same need to turn broken things into something beautiful. Is that a bad thing? No. Danny put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. It's the best thing about you. They worked in silence for the next hour, clearing debris and hauling trash to a dumpster Marcus had rented. Lily helped when she could, carrying smaller items and sweeping the porch with a broom that was taller than she was. At noon, a car pulled into the parking lot. Marcus didn't recognize it at first, but then the driver stepped out and his heart stopped. It was Michael Wells. Raymond's son walked across the cracked asphalt with slow, deliberate steps. He looked different than he had 6 weeks ago, less haunted, more present, like someone who had finally stopped running from ghosts. I heard you're keeping the place, Michael said when he reached them. Word travels fast. It's a small state, and my mother has friends everywhere. Marcus wiped his hands on his jeans. How is Sarah? Better. Having closure helps. Knowing where he is, being able to visit his grave. It doesn't erase 26 years of pain, but it's something. Michael looked around the courtyard at the faded doors and crumbling walls at the space where room 9 had been hidden for so long. I thought I'd hate this place, he said quietly. I thought coming back here would feel like walking into a nightmare. But it doesn't. It feels like, I don't know, like standing at the edge of something that's about to change. That's because it is. Marcus told him about his plan. The Listening Room Project, a place where people could come and tell their stories, record their truths, leave behind voices that might otherwise be forgotten. Michael listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, his eyes were wet. My father would have loved that. You think so? He spent his whole life trying to tell the truth about powerful people who wanted to stay hidden. He died because he refused to stay silent. This, Michael gestured at the motel, this would have meant everything to him. Then help me build it. Michael blinked. What? I can't do this alone. I'm a mechanic from Phoenix with $100 in my bank account and a daughter who needs stability. But you're a teacher. You know how to reach people. You know how to help them find their voices. I don't know anything about running a project like this. Neither do I, but we'll figure it out, together. Michael was quiet for a long time, then he extended his hand. Partners. Marcus shook it. Partners? The first month was chaos. Marcus had no idea how to renovate a motel. He had no idea how to apply for nonprofit status, or write grant applications, or navigate the bureaucratic maze of permits and inspections. He made mistakes constantly. He ordered the wrong materials. He hired contractors who disappeared after taking deposits. He spent entire nights lying awake wondering if he had lost his mind. But slowly and possibly, things started to come together. Danny took time off work to help with construction. Michael drove down from Reno on weekends bringing supplies and ideas and a quiet determination that reminded Marcus of Raymond's voice on the tape. Sarah Wells donated money from her savings money she had been setting aside for decades without knowing what she was waiting for. And then there was Agent Reynolds. He showed up at the motel on a Tuesday afternoon unannounced, wearing jeans instead of his usual suit. Marcus was on a ladder trying to fix a light fixture that had been dead since the Clinton administration. Need some help? Marcus nearly fell off the ladder. What are you doing here? Day off. Thought I'd see how the famous Listening Room Project was coming along. It's coming along slowly and expensively, and with a lot more splinters than I expected. Reynolds smiled. It was the first time Marcus had seen him smile. I brought something for you. He handed Marcus a thick envelope. Inside was a check from the FBI's Victim Services Fund. The amount made Marcus's eyes go wide. This is more than I asked for. The Bureau doesn't usually fund private projects, but what you're doing here, what you're building, it aligns with our mission. Helping victims. Giving voice to the voiceless. The director approved it personally. Marcus climbed down from the ladder, still staring at the check. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep going. Say you'll finish what you started. I will. Reynolds looked around the motel with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. You know I've been doing this job for 23 years. I've seen a lot of darkness, a lot of people broken by the things they've witnessed. Most of them never recover. They spend the rest of their lives running from shadows. He turned to Marcus, but every once in a while someone does something different. Instead of running, they turn around and face it. They take the worst thing that ever happened to them and transform it into something meaningful. That's rare. That's worth supporting. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just trying to make sense of the mess my father left behind. That's exactly what makes it special. Reynolds shook his hand and walked back to his car. At the door, he paused. Tommy Mallory's trial starts in 8 weeks. You'll be called to testify. Are you ready? Marcus thought about it. Was he ready to face the man who had terrorized his family for 3 decades? Was he ready to stand in a courtroom and tell the world what he had witnessed as a 7-year-old boy? I'll be ready. Good, because this is the part where it gets hard. Everything up until now has been preparation. The real fight is just beginning. Reynolds drove away, leaving Marcus standing in the parking lot with a check in his hand and a knot in his stomach. 8 weeks. 8 weeks until he would look Tommy Mallory in the eye and speak the truth he had been hiding his entire life. The weeks passed faster than Marcus expected. The renovation consumed every waking moment. He learned to patch drywall and install plumbing and negotiate with suppliers who wanted to charge triple for everything. He learned to function on 4 hours of sleep and cold coffee and the stubborn belief that what he was doing mattered. Lily adapted to motel life with surprising ease. She chose room 4 as her bedroom, declaring it the best because it had a window that faced the mountains and a closet big enough to hide in during hide and seek. She made friends with the construction workers, bringing them cookies she had baked with Danny's help and asking endless questions about how things worked. One night, Marcus found her sitting outside room 9, which was still empty and waiting to be transformed. What are you doing out here, sweetheart? Talking to Mr. Raymond. Marcus sat down next to her. What are you telling him? That we're making his room nice again. That people are going to come here and tell their stories just like he did. That he's not forgotten anymore. Marcus put his arm around her. Do you think he can hear you? Lily considered this seriously. I think some part of him is still here. Not in a scary way. Just waiting, like Mommy. Sometimes I talk to her too, and I feel like she's listening. Marcus's throat tightened. I feel that too. Daddy, do you think Mommy and Mr. Raymond are friends now and wherever they are? I think they probably are. They both believed in telling the truth. They would have liked each other. Lily leaned against him, her small body warm against his side. I'm glad we came here, even though it was scary at first. I'm glad we didn't run away. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. The trial arrived faster than Marcus was ready for. He woke on the morning of his testimony feeling like he hadn't slept at all, which was accurate because he hadn't. He had spent the night pacing the motel office, rehearsing what he would say, imagining Tommy Mallory's face, trying to prepare himself for questions he couldn't predict. Danny drove him to Las Vegas. Lily stayed behind with Michael, who had promised to teach her how to make his mother's famous chocolate chip cookies. The federal courthouse was enormous, an imposing building that seemed designed to make ordinary people feel small. Marcus walked through the metal detectors with legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Agent Reynolds met him in the lobby. How are you feeling? Terrified. Good. That means you understand what's at stake. They walked together to the courtroom. Tommy Mallory's trial had been national news for weeks. The prosecution was presenting a case that spanned 3 decades involving corruption, murder, witness intimidations, and organized crime. Marcus was one of several witnesses, but his testimony was crucial. He was the only living person who had witnessed Raymond Wells's final moments. The courtroom was packed. Journalists filled the press gallery. Sarah Wells sat in the front row behind the prosecution, her face pale but determined. Michael sat beside her, his hand gripping hers. And at the defense table, flanked by lawyers in expensive suits, sat Tommy Mallory. He looked older than Marcus remembered from the night of the arrest. Prison had aged him badly. His skin hung loose on his thin frame, and his eyes had a yellowish tint that suggested illness. But when those eyes found Marcus in the crowd, they still held the same cold malice that had haunted Marcus's nightmares for 31 years. Tommy smiled. It was the same smile Marcus had seen through the crack in the closet door. The smile of a predator who enjoyed the hunt more than the kill. Marcus didn't look away. You don't scare me anymore, he thought. You're just an old man in a bad suit waiting to die in prison. The bailiff called his name. Marcus walked to the witness stand on legs that had stopped shaking somewhere between the door and the first row of seats. He raised his right hand. He swore to tell the truth. And then he did. He told them everything. The night in 1998, the 2 men in the black car, the sounds from room 9, his father's silence, the decades of denial, the moment he found the key to the hidden room, the tape recorder, the documents, the truth that had been buried for 26 years. The prosecutor asked careful questions, guiding him through the story, letting him speak at his own pace. The defense attorney tried to rattle him, suggesting his childhood memories were unreliable, implying he had fabricated evidence to profit from his father's death. Marcus didn't falter. I was 7 years old, he said, his voice steady. I watched through a crack in a closet door as two men beat and killed a man whose only crime was telling the truth. I spent the next 31 years believing my father was a coward and a criminal, but the real criminal is sitting at that table, and no amount of expensive lawyers or legal maneuvering is going to change what I saw." The courtroom was silent. Tommy Mallory's smile had disappeared. In its place was something Marcus had never seen before: fear. The man who had terrorized families and corrupted officials and ordered murders without a second thought was finally truly afraid. Marcus looked directly at him. Raymond Wells asked whoever found his tape to tell his story, to make sure he wasn't forgotten. I'm telling it now, and I'll keep telling it for as long as I live. He was excused from the stand. As he walked past the defense table, Tommy grabbed his arm. The guards moved immediately, but not before Tommy whispered something only Marcus could hear. "This isn't over. It's never over." Marcus leaned close. "Yes, it is." He pulled free and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. The verdict came 3 weeks later. Guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, conspiracy, witness tampering, racketeering. The judge sentenced Tommy Mallory to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Marcus was at the motel when the call came. He was standing in room 9, which had finally been transformed into something new. The walls were painted a soft blue. Recording equipment sat on a small desk. A comfortable chair faced a microphone. Above the door, a sign read, "Your voice matters. Your truth matters. You matter." "It's done," Reynolds said on the phone. "He's going away forever." Marcus closed his eyes and let the words wash over him. Forever. Tommy Mallory would die in prison. He would never threaten another family. He would never order another murder. He would never smile that cold smile at another child hiding in a closet. "Thank you," Marcus said, "for everything." "Don't thank me. You did the hard part. All I did was follow the evidence." "Will you come to the opening next month? The listening room project is finally ready." Reynolds was quiet for a moment. "I'd be honored." Marcus hung up and looked around the room. This space had held so much darkness for so long. Fear and death and secrets that festered like wounds. But now sunlight poured through clean windows. Fresh air circulated through vents that actually worked. And soon voices would fill this room. Voices that had been silent. Stories that had been hidden. Truths that deserved to be heard. Lily appeared in the doorway. "Daddy Uncle Michael said the cookies are ready, and Grandma Sarah is here. She brought flowers for the garden." "I'll be right there, sweetheart." Lily didn't leave. She walked into the room and stood beside him, looking at the recording equipment with curious eyes. "Is this where people will tell their stories?" "Yes." "Can I tell mine someday?" Marcus knelt down to her level. "What story do you want to tell?" Lily thought about it. About Mommy, about how she was sick but she never stopped being brave, about how she told me to always be kind and always tell the truth even when it's hard, about how sometimes I dream about her and she tells me she's proud of me. Marcus's eyes burned with tears he didn't try to hide. "That's a beautiful story, Lily. I think a lot of people would want to hear it." "Will you tell yours too, Daddy, about Grandpa and Mr. Raymond and the room that was hidden?" "I already have, sweetheart, but yes, I'll tell it again, as many times as it takes for people to understand why the truth matters." Lily took his hand. "Mommy was right about you." "What do you mean?" "She said you were the bravest person she ever knew. She said you just didn't know it yet." Marcus pulled her into a hug, holding her tight, feeling her small heart beat against his chest. "I know it now," he whispered. "Thanks to you." They walked out of room 9 together into the sunlight, into the sound of voices and laughter coming from the courtyard where Sarah was arranging flowers and Michael was passing out cookies and Danny was hanging a banner that read "Grand Opening, coming soon." Marcus stood in the doorway and watched his strange, beautiful family. The widow who had waited 26 years for answers. The son who had grown up hating a father who actually loved him. The brother-in-law who had dropped everything to help a grieving man rebuild his life. And at the center of it all, an 8-year-old girl with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn determination to face the darkness instead of running from it. This was what Raymond Wells had been fighting for, not just to expose corruption or bring criminals to justice, but to protect the people he loved, to give them a future free from fear. Marcus understood that now, and he was going to make sure Raymond's sacrifice meant something. The Listening Room Project would open in 30 days, and when it did, the Desert Wind Motel would finally become what it was always meant to be. Not a place where secrets went to die, but a place where truth came to live. Sarah approached him with a glass of lemonade and a smile that still held traces of grief, but also something else. Hope, maybe. Or peace. "How does it feel?" she asked. How does what feel winning? After everything that happened, after everything you went through, how does it feel to finally win? Marcus looked at his daughter, who was now helping Michael frost cookies with too much enthusiasm and not enough precision. He looked at Danny, who was pretending to be annoyed, but couldn't hide his smile. He looked at Room 9 transformed from a tomb into a sanctuary. "It doesn't feel like winning," he said. "It feels like waking up, like I've been asleep for 31 years and I'm finally seeing things clearly." Sarah nodded. Raymond used to say that truth was like light. It doesn't destroy darkness, it just reveals what was always there. He sounds like he was a wise man. He was a stubborn man. He couldn't let go of things, couldn't stop fighting even when the fight was going to kill him. She paused. But he was also right about all of it, the corruption, the cover-ups, everything. He was right, and it took 26 years for the world to catch up. Better late than never. That's what I keep telling myself. Sarah touched his arm. "Thank you, Marcus, for opening that door, for not walking away, for giving us back our story." Raymond gave me back mine first. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the activity around them, feeling the desert wind blow through the courtyard with its promise of change. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The renovation wasn't finished. The grand opening required 1,000 details to be sorted out. And somewhere out there, people were carrying stories they needed to tell, truths. They needed to speak wounds, they needed to heal. But for now, Marcus allowed himself this moment, this small victory, this gathering of broken people who had somehow found their way to each other. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. His heart lurched, old fears surfacing instantly. But when he looked at the message, he laughed out loud. It was from a woman in Oregon who had read about the Listening Room Project in a news article. She wanted to know if she could come tell her story. She had been silent for 40 years, she said. She was finally ready to speak. Marcus typed back, "We'll be ready for you. Room 9 is waiting." He put the phone away and looked up at the sky, at the sun setting behind the mountains in shades of orange and purple and gold. Somewhere out there, Elena was watching. He was sure of it. And somewhere Raymond Wells was finally at peace. The motel that had been a prison for so long was becoming something else entirely. A lighthouse in the desert. A sanctuary for the silenced. A place where the truth would live forever. The grand opening of the Listening Room Project happened on a Saturday in late October, exactly 1 year after Marcus Cole had first pulled his rusted pickup truck into the cracked parking lot of the Desert Wind Motel. The morning started at 5:47 when Lily burst into Marcus's room screaming that she couldn't find her dress. Marcus spent 20 minutes helping her search before discovering it hanging exactly where she had left it the night before. By 6:30, Danny had arrived with enough coffee to fuel a small army. By 7:15, Sarah and Michael pulled in with a carload of flowers, balloons, and a banner that read "Every Voice Matters" in letters big enough to see from the highway. By 8 o'clock, Marcus was standing in the courtyard having a quiet panic attack. "What if no one comes?" he asked Danny. "People will come. What if they come and hate it? They won't hate it. What if this whole thing was a mistake? What if I should have just sold the place and moved on like a normal person?" Danny grabbed his shoulders and forced him to make eye contact. "Elena believed in you. Lily believes in you. I believe in you. Raymond Wells believed in whoever would find his message. Stop doubting yourself and start trusting the people who love you." Marcus took a deep breath, then another. His hands stopped shaking. Okay, let's do this." The first guest arrived at 9:12. Her name was Margaret Shen, and she was 73 years old. She had driven all the way from Portland, Oregon, 16 hours straight because she had read about the Listening Room Project in a newspaper article and couldn't wait any longer. Marcus met her at the entrance to Room 9. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Chen. What brings you here?" Margaret looked at the door with eyes that had seen too much and hidden it for too long. 52 years ago, I witnessed something terrible. I was 21 years old, working as a secretary for a construction company in San Francisco. I saw my boss bribe a building inspector. The inspector signed off on faulty materials. 6 months later, the building collapsed. 14 people died. Her voice cracked. I was supposed to testify. I had evidence. I had documents, but they threatened my family. They said if I talked, my mother would have an accident. My little brother would disappear. I was 21 years old, and I was terrified. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Her story was different from his, but the fear was the same. The silence was the same. What happened? I kept quiet, I moved away, I got married, had children, lived a normal life. But every single day for 52 years, I've thought about those 14 people, their families, the truth I was too scared to tell. She looked at Marcus with tears streaming down her face. I'm not scared anymore. I'm 73 years old and I'm dying of cancer and I refuse to take this secret to my grave. Can you help me? Marcus took her hand. That's exactly why we're here. He led her into room 9. The space was warm and quiet, designed to feel like a sanctuary rather than a recording studio. A comfortable chair faced a microphone. Soft lighting created shadows that felt protective rather than threatening. Take as long as you need, Marcus said. Say whatever you want to say. No one will judge you. No one will interrupt. This is your space. Your voice. Your truth. Margaret sat down. She looked at the microphone like it was both her enemy and her salvation. Then she began to speak. For the next 3 hours, Margaret Chen told her story. She named names. She described documents. She recounted conversations she had memorized 52 years ago and never forgotten. She cried. She laughed. She raged against the men who had silenced her and the system that had protected them. When she finally stopped talking, she looked lighter, like someone had removed a physical weight from her shoulders. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting us with your story. Marcus walked her to her car. At the door, she turned back. What will you do with my recording? Whatever you want. We can archive it privately, share it with journalists, send it to law enforcement. This is your truth. You control what happens to it. Margaret thought for a moment. The men who threatened me are dead now. The company went bankrupt decades ago. There's no one left to punish. She paused. But those 14 families never got answers. They never knew why their loved ones died. Send them my recording. Let them finally know the truth. Marcus promised he would. Margaret drove away and Marcus stood in the parking lot watching her car disappear down the highway. The first story had been told. Hundreds more were waiting. By noon, the Desert Wind Motel was busier than it had been in decades. Cars filled the parking lot. People milled around the courtyard, some nervous, some curious, some simply grateful to be somewhere that understood their pain. Lily had appointed herself the official greeter, handing out cookies and telling everyone about the motel's history with the enthusiasm of a seasoned tour guide. Marcus was in the middle of showing a family to the waiting area when Michael approached him with a strange expression. There's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. Who? She wouldn't give her name, but Marcus, she has a little girl with her, about 7 years old. Marcus's heart skipped. He followed Michael to the office where a woman in her early 30s stood holding the hand of a child who looked like she hadn't slept in days. The woman turned when Marcus entered. Her face was familiar, but he couldn't place it. Mr. Cole, my name is Rebecca Mallory. I'm Tommy's granddaughter, and this is my daughter Sophie, Jennifer's daughter. Marcus felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Jennifer's daughter, the little girl who had been kidnapped and rescued during the FBI operation, the child Jennifer had died trying to protect. I know what you're thinking, Rebecca said quickly. You're thinking this is some kind of trap, that I'm here to hurt you or threaten you or finish what my grandfather started. But I'm not. I swear to God, I'm not. Then why are you here? Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. Because my mother died trying to do the right thing. Because my grandfather destroyed everyone he touched. Because I spent my whole life in that family, watching, learning, hating what I saw, but too scared to leave. And because when I heard about this place, about what you're building here, I knew I had to come. She looked down at Sophie, who was clutching a stuffed rabbit and staring at Marcus with wide, frightened eyes. My daughter watched her grandmother die. She watched men take her in the middle of the night. She hasn't spoken a word since we got her back. The therapists say she's traumatized. They say she may never be the same. Rebecca's voice broke. But I think she needs to tell her story. I think she needs someone to listen, even if she can't use words yet, even if it takes years. I think she needs to know that her voice matters, that what happened to her matters, that she's not alone. Marcus looked at the little girl. Her eyes were too old for her face. Her silence was too heavy for her small shoulders. He thought about Lily, who had spent her whole life surrounded by love and honesty. He thought about how different things could have been if Marcus had grown up in the Mallory family instead of his own. He knelt down to Sophie's level. Hi, Sophie. My name is Marcus. I have a daughter, too. Her name is Lily. She's 8 years old, and she makes really good cookies. Would you like to meet her? Sophie didn't respond, but something in her eyes shifted. A tiny spark of interest, almost invisible, but there. Marcus stood up and faced Rebecca. You're welcome here, both of you, for as long as you need. Rebecca sobbed. She grabbed Marcus's hand and squeezed it so hard it hurt. Thank you, thank you. I was so scared you'd turn us away. We don't turn anyone away. That's the whole point. He led them to the courtyard where Lily was organizing a cookie station with military precision. When she saw Sophie, her face lit up. "Hi, I'm Lily. Do you want a cookie? I made them myself. Well, Uncle Michael helped, but I did most of the work." Sophie didn't answer, but she let go of her mother's hand and took a tentative step toward the cookie table. Lily didn't push. She just smiled and held out a cookie, patient and kind, waiting for Sophie to come to her on her own terms. Marcus watched them and felt something unlock in his chest. This was why he had kept the motel. This was why he had transformed Room 9, not just to give voice to the silenced, but to give hope to the broken. Even the children of monsters deserved a chance at healing. Even the grandchildren of killers deserved a chance at peace. The afternoon brought more visitors. A war veteran who had witnessed atrocities he couldn't report. A former cult member who had escaped but never told anyone what she endured. A teenager who had been bullied so badly she tried to take her own life. One by one, they entered Room 9. One by one, they told their stories. One by one, they walked out looking different. Not healed exactly, but lighter. Like they had finally put down a weight they didn't realize they were carrying. At 4:37, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Agent Reynolds. "Watching the news coverage of your opening. Impressive turnout. How does it feel?" Marcus typed back, "Overwhelming, in the best way." "Good. You deserve this. Raymond Wells would be proud." Marcus smiled and pocketed his phone. At 5:15, something unexpected happened. A black car pulled into the parking lot. Not an SUV like the ones that had haunted Marcus for months. A sedan. Expensive. Tinted windows. Marcus felt his old fear spike immediately. His hand went to his pocket, where he kept his phone ready to dial 911 at a moment's notice. But when the driver stepped out, Marcus's fear transformed into something else entirely. It was a man in his 60s, well-dressed, with silver hair, and a face that looked like it had been crying recently. He walked toward Marcus with slow, uncertain steps. "Mr. Cole, my name is Thomas Bennett. My father was Douglas Bennett, the mayor who helped cover up Raymond Wells's murder." Marcus's body went rigid. "I know what my father did," Thomas continued quickly. "I've known for years. I found his journals after he died. The guilt was eating him alive. He wrote about Raymond, about your father, about all of it. He never told anyone. He just carried it until it killed him." "Why are you here?" Thomas reached into his jacket and pulled out a leather-bound book. "Because I want to tell his story, not to excuse him, not to ask for forgiveness, but because the truth should include everyone who was involved, even the ones who got away." He held out the journal. "This is his confession, everything he did, everyone he hurt, every lie he told. I want you to have it. I want it to be part of the record." Marcus took the journal. It felt heavy in his hands. Heavy with secrets, heavy with guilt, heavy with a truth that had been hidden for nearly 3 decades. "Why now?" Marcus asked. "Your father is dead. No one could have forced you to come forward." Thomas looked at the motel, at the banner, at the people gathered in the courtyard. "Because I saw what you're building here. I saw Margaret Chen's interview on the news this morning. I watched a 73-year-old woman finally tell a truth she'd been hiding for 52 years. And I realized that if she could do it, if she could be that brave, after everything she'd lost, then so could I." He met Marcus's eyes. "I'm tired of carrying my father's sins. I'm tired of pretending my family name isn't stained with blood. I want to be free of it, and I think the only way to be free is to speak." Marcus studied him for a long moment, looking for deception, looking for hidden motives. But all he saw was a man who had inherited a legacy of corruption and desperately wanted to escape it. "Room 9 is available at 6 o'clock. Can you wait?" Thomas nodded, relief flooding his face. "I've been waiting my whole life. Another hour won't hurt." At 6:14, Thomas Bennett sat down in front of the microphone and began to speak. His father's story spilled out of him like water from a broken dam. The bribes, the cover-ups, the threats. The moment Douglas Bennett had realized he was in too deep to get out. The guilt that had consumed him until the day he died. Thomas talked for over 2 hours. He named every person his father had mentioned in the journals. He described every crime, every pain in it, every buried truth. He held nothing back. When he finished, he was weeping. "I'm sorry," he said to the microphone, to the room, to ghosts he couldn't see. "I'm so sorry for what my father did. I'm sorry I didn't come forward sooner. I'm sorry I let fear keep me silent for so long." Marcus turned off the recording equipment. "You came forward now. That's what matters." Does it really matter when so many people are already dead?" Marcus thought about his own father. About Walter Cole, who had spent 26 years drowning in guilt, who had tried to save Raymond Wells and failed, who had lived in terror of men who would kill his son without hesitation. My father was a victim too, Marcus said. He tried to do the right thing and the system crushed him. He spent the rest of his life believing he was a monster, but he wasn't. He was just a man who got caught up in something bigger than himself. He looked at Thomas. Your father made worse choices. He had more power, more options, more ways out, but he was still human, and humans are complicated. We can do terrible things and still feel remorse. We can be villains in one story and victims in another. The truth isn't black and white. It's everything in between. Thomas wiped his eyes. What happens now? With the recording. Same as everyone else. It's your truth. You decide what happens to it. I want it public, all of it. I want people to know what my father did. I want his victims' families to finally have answers. Are you sure once it's out there, you can't take it back? I'm sure. I've been hiding from this my whole life. I'm done hiding. Marcus nodded. Then we'll make it public. Thomas stood and shook Marcus's hand. Thank you, Mr. Cole, for creating this place, for giving people like me somewhere to finally tell the truth. Thank you for having the courage to tell it. Thomas walked out into the desert night. Marcus watched him go, then turned back to room 9. The recording equipment hummed softly. The chair sat empty, waiting for the next person with a story to tell. In one day, the Listening Room Project had heard truths that had been buried for decades. It had welcomed the victim and the guilty, the brave and the terrified, the innocent and the compromised. And it was only the beginning. At 8:43, Marcus found Lily asleep on a couch in the lobby, her head resting on Sophie Mallory's shoulder. Sophie was awake, staring at the ceiling, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. When she saw Marcus, something happened that made his heart stop. She spoke. Is this a safe place? Her voice was barely a whisper, hoarse from months of silence, but it was there. Marcus knelt beside her. Yes, this is a safe place, the safest place I know. My mommy said she was going to make things safe, but then the bad men came. I know, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. Is my mommy in heaven? I believe she is. I believe she's watching over you right now, and she's so proud of how brave you're being. I don't feel brave. That's okay. Brave doesn't always feel brave. Sometimes it just feels like doing the next thing, even when you're scared. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that shattered Marcus's heart and rebuilt it at the same time. Can I tell my story someday like the other people? Whenever you're ready, we'll be here. Even if it takes a long time. Even if it takes forever. Sophie closed her eyes and leaned against Lily. Within minutes, she was asleep. Rebecca appeared in the doorway, her face wet with tears. She spoke. Oh my God, she spoke. The therapist said it might take years. They said she might never... Her voice broke. She rushed to her daughter's side and held her gently, careful not to wake her. Thank you, Rebecca whispered to Marcus. Thank you for giving her back her voice. Marcus looked at the two sleeping girls, one who had grown up surrounded by love, one who had grown up surrounded by violence. Both of them here together, healing in ways he couldn't have predicted. This is what the place is for, he said, not just for telling stories, for remembering that we're not alone, that our pain connects us, that healing is possible even when it seems impossible. Rebecca nodded, tears streaming down her face. Jennifer would have loved this. She always said our family had too many secrets. She said someday someone would have the courage to let the truth out. She was right, and she was that someone, even if she didn't live to see it. Danny found Marcus at 9:30 sitting on the porch staring at the stars. Hell of a first day. Hell of a first day, huh? Marcus agreed. Danny sat down beside him, and handed him a beer. I counted 37 people who came through today. 37 stories, some of them decades old, some of them from last year, all of them finally being heard. It's more than I expected. It's more than anyone expected. The news coverage is going viral. People are sharing Margaret Chen's interview everywhere. They're calling it the most important witness testimony they've ever heard. Marcus took a long drink of his beer. I talked to Thomas Bennett today, Douglas Bennett's son. Danny went still. The mayor who helped cover up Raymond's murder. His son came here to confess. He had his father's journals. He told us everything. Names, dates, everything. Jesus. He wanted it made public. He said he was tired of carrying his father's sins. Danny shook his head slowly. So the son of one of the men responsible for this whole mess came to the motel that holds the evidence against his father and confessed voluntarily. That's about the size of it. This place is something else, Marcus. I don't know what you built here, but it's more than just a room with a microphone. It's like It's like a magnet for truth. Like people who have been holding on to secrets their whole lives can sense that this is where they're supposed to let them go. Marcus thought about that. Elena used to say that truth has its own gravity, that it pulls people toward it even when they're trying to run away. Maybe that's what this place is. A place where truth's gravity is so strong that no one can escape it. Elena was a wise woman. The wisest. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the desert wind, watching the stars wheel overhead. At 10:15, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Mom wants to talk to you. She says it's important." Marcus found Sarah in room 9 sitting in the chair looking at the microphone with an expression he couldn't read. "Mrs. Wells, Michael said you wanted to see me." Sarah turned to him with tears in her eyes. "I want to tell my story." Marcus sat down across from her. I thought you already told it, at the trial, in all the interviews. I told Raymond's story. I told what happened to him, what the investigation found, how the truth finally came out, but I never told my story. The 26 years of not knowing, the nights I lay awake wondering if my husband was alive or dead, the birthdays I celebrated alone, the grandchildren he never got to meet. Her voice cracked. I never told anyone how I felt, what it was like to love someone who just vanished, what it was like to spend half my life in limbo, not a widow but not a wife, not grieving but not moving on. Why didn't you? Because no one asked, because everyone wanted to hear about Raymond, about the corruption, about the justice. No one wanted to hear about a woman's broken heart. She looked at the microphone. But here in this place, you listen to everything, even the parts that don't make the news, even the parts that are just human. Marcus stood and turned on the recording equipment. Tell me everything, Mrs. Wells, every part of it. I'm listening. Sarah Wells spoke for 3 hours. She talked about falling in love with Raymond at 19, about their wedding, their first apartment the day Michael was born. She talked about Raymond's passion for justice, his stubbornness, his inability to look away from wrongdoing even when it put him in danger. And she talked about the morning he didn't come home, the phone call that never came, the car found abandoned on the highway, the police who searched for weeks and found nothing, the gradual shift from hope to despair to a numb acceptance that she might never know what happened. She talked about raising Michael alone, about explaining to a 9-year-old why his father wasn't there, about watching her son grow up angry and confused, blaming a man who had actually been trying to protect him. She talked about the loneliness, the holidays spent wondering, the moments she wanted to share with someone who wasn't there, the way grief calcified into something harder, something that protected her but also isolated her. And she talked about the day Marcus opened room 9. When I got that call from the FBI, I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was some kind of mistake, or a cruel joke. After 26 years, you stop expecting the phone to ring with answers. She wiped her eyes. But then I came here. I saw the room where Raymond spent his last days. I listened to his voice on that tape. And for the first time in 26 years, I felt like I could breathe again, like the weight I had been carrying finally had somewhere to go. She looked at Marcus. You gave me that. You gave me back my husband's voice. You gave me answers I had stopped believing I would ever get. And now sitting here, I realize I can give something back. What's that? My truth, not Raymond's, mine. The story of a woman who loved a brave man and lost him and somehow survived. The story of what it means to wait. The story of what it means to finally stop waiting. She took a deep breath. That's my story, and I'm glad I finally told it. Marcus turned off the recording equipment. Thank you, Mrs. Wells, for trusting me with this. Thank you for creating a place where stories like mine matter. At midnight, Marcus stood alone in the courtyard of the Desert Wind Motel. The guests had gone home. The staff had cleaned up. Lily was asleep in her room. Sophie curled up beside her on a makeshift bed. Danny had driven back to Henderson, promising to return next weekend. The motel was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet now. Not the silence of secrets, the silence of peace. Marcus walked to room 9 and stood in the doorway. So many stories had been told in this room today. So many truths finally spoken. So many voices finally heard. And tomorrow, there would be more. His phone buzzed with a text from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Cole, my name is David Park. I'm a journalist with the Washington Post. I've been following your project since the opening. I'd like to fly out and do a feature story. Would you be willing to talk? Marcus typed back. I'm always willing to talk. That's the whole point. He put the phone away and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Elena was watching. He was sure of it. Somewhere out there, Raymond Wells was finally at peace. And somewhere out there, millions of people were carrying stories they were afraid to tell. But now they had a place to tell them. And Marcus Cole would be there to listen. For as long as it took. For as many voices as needed to be heard. The Desert Wind Motel had been reborn. And its story was just beginning. 1 year after the grand opening of the Listening Room Project, Marcus Cole stood at the exact spot where he had first seen his daughter ask about Room 9. The anniversary had brought people from across the country. Journalists, survivors, families of victims, anyone whose life had been touched by what happened at the Desert Wind Motel. But Marcus wasn't thinking about the crowd. He was thinking about a letter that had arrived that morning, a letter that would change everything one more time. The envelope had no return address, just his name written in handwriting he didn't recognize. Inside was a single page folded 3 times, and a photograph that made Marcus's heart stop. It was a picture of his father, Walter Cole, standing next to a young woman Marcus had never seen. The woman was holding a baby. On the back of the photograph, someone had written, "Angela Cole, born March 15, 1987, your sister." Marcus read the letter with shaking hands. "Dear Mr. Cole, my name is Angela Whitfield. I was born Angela Cole. Your father was my father too. I know this will come as a shock. It came as a shock to me when I found out 3 years ago after my mother died, and I discovered letters she had hidden my entire life. Walter Cole had an affair in 1986. My mother got pregnant. When she told him, he begged her to keep it secret. He was terrified. He said there were people who would hurt anyone he loved, anyone connected to him. So my mother moved away. She changed her name. She raised me alone, never telling me who my father really was. I grew up thinking my father was a man who had died before I was born. That was the story my mother told. I believed it until I found the letters. I've spent the past 3 years trying to decide if I should contact you. I watched the trial on television. I saw what you went through. I didn't want to add to your pain. But then I saw the Listening Room Project. I saw what you built. I saw the stories you've collected, the voices you've heard, the truths you've helped people tell. And I realized that I have a truth too. I'm your sister. I exist. And I don't want to be a secret anymore. If you're willing to meet me, I'll be at the Desert Wind Motel on the anniversary. I'll understand if you're not ready. But I hope you are. With Hope, Angela." Pistol. Marcus sat down on the porch legs, no longer able to hold him. A sister. He had a sister. His father had kept yet another secret, another truth buried beneath decades of fear, another life hidden away because Walter Cole was too scared to face the consequences of his actions. But this time, the secret wasn't about murder or corruption. It was about family, about a woman who had grown up without knowing her father, about a connection Marcus never knew he had. Danny found him 20 minutes later, still sitting on the porch, still staring at the letter. "Marcus, you okay? The ceremony starts in an hour." Marcus handed him the letter without a word. Danny read it. His face went through several emotions. Shock, confusion, something that looked like anger, and finally a soft kind of understanding. Jesus Christ, Walter really was something else, wasn't he? He had a daughter, he had another child, and he never told anyone. He was scared, same reason he did everything else. Same reason he buried Raymond Wells. Same reason he spent his whole life hiding. Marcus shook his head slowly. How many more secrets are out there? How many more people did my father hurt by staying silent? I don't know, but this one isn't hurt. She's here. She's reaching out. She's asking for a chance. Marcus looked at the photograph again. The young woman holding the baby. His half-sister frozen in time, never knowing who her father really was. She'll be at the ceremony. Are you going to talk to her? I don't know. What does your gut tell you? Marcus thought about it. What would Elena say? What would Lily say? What would Raymond Wells, whose voice had started all of this, tell him to do? My gut tells me that everyone deserves to be heard, even the secrets I didn't know existed. Danny put a hand on his shoulder. Then let's go hear her. The anniversary ceremony started at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 300 people gathered in the courtyard of the Desert Wind Motel. Sarah Wells sat in the front row, Michael beside her, both of them wearing small pins with Raymond's photograph. Agent Reynolds stood near the back, out of uniform but unmistakable. Thomas Bennett had come despite the hate mail he still received for his father's crimes. Rebecca Mallory was there with Sophie, who now spoke in full sentences and had started therapy that was actually helping. And somewhere in the crowd was Angela Whitfield, Marcus's sister, a woman he had never met who shared his blood. Marcus stepped up to the microphone, feeling the weight of every eye on him. 1 year ago, I came to this motel planning to sell it and move on. I thought it was just a broken building full of broken memories. I was wrong. He looked out at the crowd. This place was never just a building. It was a keeper of stories, a guardian of truths that were too dangerous or too painful to speak. For 26 years, Room 9 held a secret that destroyed lives and protected criminals. But when that secret finally came out, something unexpected happened. He paused. People started talking, not just about Raymond Wells, about themselves, about the things they had witnessed, and the lies they had been forced to tell, and the truths they had carried alone for decades. They came here from all over the country, strangers with nothing in common except the need to be heard. Marcus's voice cracked, but he pushed through. In the past year, the Listening Room Project has recorded over 400 stories. We've helped reopen 7 cold cases. We've connected victims with families who thought they'd never get answers. We've given voice to people who thought they would die without ever speaking their truth. He looked at Sarah Wells, who was crying silently. None of this would have happened without Raymond Wells. He was a man who refused to stay silent even when silence would have saved his life. He left behind a tape asking whoever found him to tell his story. I found him. I told his story. And now hundreds of other stories are being told because of his courage. Marcus took a deep breath. But I've learned something this year. Something I didn't understand when I started. The truth isn't just about the past. It's about the present, too. It's about the secrets we're still keeping. The connections we're still hiding. The family we don't know we have. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the photograph. This morning I received a letter from a woman named Angela Whitfield. She told me something I never knew. Something my father hid for 37 years. He held up the photograph. I have a sister. A murmur ran through the crowd. Marcus saw Danny nodding encouragingly. He saw Lily watching with wide eyes. He saw a woman near the back, dark-haired, nervous, holding her hands together like she was praying. Angela. My father was a complicated man. He made terrible mistakes. He let fear control his life. But he also loved people. He loved me. He loved my mother. And somewhere out there, he loved a woman enough to have a child with her, even if he was too scared to acknowledge it. Marcus stepped away from the microphone and walked toward the woman at the back of the crowd. Angela was crying. Her hands were shaking. She looked like she wanted to run and stay at the same time. Marcus stopped in front of her. Angela. She nodded, unable to speak. I got your letter. I wasn't sure you'd read it. I wasn't sure you'd want to meet me. I wasn't sure either, but then I remembered something. A year ago, a man named Raymond Wells asked me to tell his truth. I thought I was done when his killer went to prison, but I wasn't done. I was just getting started. He took her hand. Your truth matters too. Our father tried to hide you because he was afraid, but I'm not afraid anymore, and I don't want you to be a secret. Angela sobbed. She threw her arms around Marcus and held him like she was afraid he would disappear. I've been alone my whole life, she whispered. I always felt like something was missing, like there was a part of me I couldn't find. You're not alone anymore. They stood there for a long moment, 2 strangers who shared a father finally finding each other after 37 years. When they separated, the crowd was silent. Then Sarah Wells started clapping. Michael joined her. Danny, Lily. One by one, 300 people applauded a reunion that should have happened decades ago. Marcus led Angela to the front of the crowd. This is my sister, he said into the microphone. I met her 5 minutes ago. I don't know anything about her yet, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life learning. He looked at Angela. Would you like to tell your story? She hesitated. Then she nodded. Yes, I think I would. Marcus led her to room 9. Angela sat in the chair and looked at the microphone with the same mix of fear and determination that Marcus had seen in hundreds of faces over the past year. Take your time, he said. Say whatever you want to say. Angela closed her eyes for a moment. Then she began. My name is Angela Whitfield. I was born Angela Cole. For 37 years, I thought my father was a man named Robert Whitfield, who died in a car accident before I was born. That was the story my mother told me. I believed it because I had no reason not to. Her voice steadied as she spoke. 3 years ago, my mother died of cancer. While I was going through her things, I found a box of letters. Letters from a man named Walter Cole. Letters that talked about their affair. Letters that talked about me. She opened her eyes and looked directly at the microphone. I learned that my father was alive, that he had lived just a few hours away from me my entire life, that he had another family, another son, another life that I was never part of. I learned that he had asked my mother to keep me secret because he was afraid. Her voice cracked. I was 34 years old when I found out my entire life was based on a lie. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my family, about where I came from, all of it was wrong. I spent months being angry. Angry at my mother for lying to me. Angry at my father for abandoning me. Angry at myself for believing a story that was never true. She wiped her eyes. But then I saw the news coverage of the trial. I saw Marcus, my brother. I saw what he went through, what he uncovered, what he built from the ashes of our father's secrets, and I realized that anger wasn't going to help me. The only thing that would help was the truth. She took a deep breath. So here's my truth. I grew up without a father. I grew up believing I was unwanted. I grew up feeling like there was something fundamentally broken inside me, something that made me unworthy of love. And all of that was because two people were too scared to tell the truth. Her voice rose. But I'm not scared anymore. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm here in this room, in this place where secrets come to die, and I'm saying out loud what no one ever wanted me to say. My name is Angela Cole. I am Walter Cole's daughter. I am Marcus Cole's sister. I exist. I matter. And no one is going to keep me secret ever again. She stopped talking. The room was silent except for the hum of the recording equipment. Marcus turned it off. How do you feel? Angela laughed, a wet, broken sound. Like I just ran a marathon. Like I've been holding my breath for 37 years and I finally exhaled. That's how everyone feels after they tell their story. It's the weight lifting. The truth finally having somewhere to go. Angela looked at him. Thank you for letting me do this. Thank you for not turning me away. You're family. I don't turn family away. You didn't know I existed until this morning. Doesn't matter. Family isn't about how long you've known someone. It's about showing up when it counts. They walked out of room 9 together. The crowd had dispersed for refreshments, but Lily was waiting on the porch with Sophie. The two girls had become inseparable over the past year, bonded by trauma and healing. Daddy, is this really my aunt? Marcus smiled. Yes, sweetheart. This is Angela. Your Aunt Angela. Lily studied Angela with the frank curiosity that only children possess. You look like Daddy, around the eyes. Angela laughed. I've been told I look like my father. I guess that means I look like your father too. Are you going to live here at the motel? I don't know yet. I live in Colorado. I have a job there, a life. You could visit. We have lots of rooms, and Uncle Michael makes really good pancakes on Sundays. Angela looked at Marcus. Uncle Michael. Raymond Wells's son. Long story. Basically, we've built a very strange family here. Blood relations optional. Angela smiled. It was the first real smile Marcus had seen from her. I think I'd like to be part of that family, if you'll have me. We'll have you. We'll absolutely have you. The rest of the anniversary passed in a blur of conversations, reunions, and new connections. At 6 o'clock, Marcus found Sarah Wells sitting alone near room 9 looking at the memorial plaque they had installed above the door. Raymond Wells, 1960-1998. His voice was silenced, but his truth lives on. How are you doing? Marcus asked. Sarah smiled a sad but peaceful expression. I'm doing better than I thought I would. A year ago, I didn't know if I could survive this. The anniversary, the memories. But being here, seeing what you've built, seeing all these people whose lives have been touched by Raymond's story, it helps. He would be proud of this place. He would be proud of you. She touched his arm. You finished what he started. You made his death mean something. That's not nothing, Marcus. That's everything. Marcus sat down beside her. Can I ask you something? Something personal? After everything we've been through, you can ask me anything. When did you forgive Walter? My father, when did you stop being angry at him for what he did? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. I'm not sure I ever forgave him, not completely. What he did helping to hide Raymond, keeping that secret for 26 years, that caused me and Michael so much pain, years of wondering, years of not knowing. She paused. But I've come to understand that forgiveness isn't really about the person who hurt you. It's about yourself. It's about deciding that you're not going to let their actions control your life anymore. Walter made terrible choices, but holding on to anger at a dead man doesn't help anyone. It just keeps me trapped in the past. Marcus thought about his own journey, the anger he had felt at his father, the hatred that had consumed him when he first discovered the truth, the slow, painful process of understanding that Walter Cole had been a victim too in his own way. I met my sister today. I saw. That was brave of both of you. My father had another family, another secret. Even now, a year after his death, I'm still discovering lies he told. Sarah nodded. That's the thing about secrets. They don't die when the person who kept them dies. They just wait for someone else to find them. Do you think I'll ever know all of them, all the things my father hid? Probably not, but maybe that's okay. Maybe knowing everything isn't the point. Maybe the point is being willing to face whatever truth comes your way whenever it comes. Marcus looked at room 9. Raymond's truth came to me when I was 7 years old. I spent 31 years running from it. Angela's truth came to me this morning. I could have run from that too. But you didn't. No, I didn't, because Elena taught me that running doesn't work. The truth catches up eventually. Better to face it head on than to spend your whole life looking over your shoulder. Sarah squeezed his hand. Elena was a wise woman. Everyone keeps telling me that. Because it's true. At 8 o'clock, Marcus gave the closing speech of the anniversary celebration. The crowd had thinned, but the people who remained were the ones who mattered most. Family by blood and family by choice. Survivors and supporters. Seekers of truth and keepers of stories. 1 year ago, I opened a door that had been sealed for 26 years. Behind that door was a story that needed to be told, a man who needed to be remembered, a truth that needed to come out. He looked at the faces watching him. But room 9 was just the beginning. In the past year, this place has become something never imagined. A sanctuary for the silenced. A home for the hidden. A place where the truth, no matter how old or painful or complicated, finally has somewhere to live. He paused. Today I learned that I have a sister I never knew existed. Another secret my father kept. Another truth that was buried out of fear. But unlike the secrets that came before, this one found its way to the light before it was too late. Angela is here. She told her story. She's part of our family now. He looked at Angela, who was standing with Lily and Sophie, all three of them holding hands. That's what the Listening Room Project is really about. Not just recording stories, not just preserving truths, but bringing people together, connecting strangers through shared pain, building families out of the fragments left behind when secrets finally break. Marcus took a deep breath. My father spent his whole life afraid. Afraid of powerful men. Afraid of the truth. Afraid of losing the people he loved. That fear made him do terrible things. It made him hide a murder. It made him abandon a daughter. It made him die alone, drowning in guilt he could never escape. His voice strengthened. I'm not going to live like that. My daughter is not going to grow up in the shadow of secrets. This place, this motel that was once a tomb for buried truths, is going to be a beacon, a lighthouse in the desert, a reminder that no matter how dark the secret, no matter how long it's been hidden, the truth will find its way out. He raised his glass. To Raymond Wells, who started this, to my father, who tried to end it, to Elena, who taught me that silence is not safety, and to everyone who has walked through those doors and trusted us with their stories. He looked at room 9 one last time. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. You matter. 300 voices echoed back. You matter. That night after the guests had gone and the motel had grown quiet, Marcus walked to room 9 one last time. Lily was asleep. Angela had checked into room 6 planning to stay for a week to get to know her new family. Danny had driven back to Henderson with promises to return for Thanksgiving. Sarah and Michael had left together, both of them lighter than when they arrived. Marcus sat in the chair where hundreds of people had sat before him. He looked at the microphone. Then he turned on the recording equipment. My name is Marcus Cole. I'm the founder of the Listening Room Project. I've spent the past year listening to other people's stories, but I've never told my own. Not really. Not completely. He leaned forward. When I was 7 years old, I watched a man die. I didn't understand what I was seeing. I just knew that something terrible was happening in room 9 of my father's motel, and I was too scared to stop it. His voice trembled, but he kept going. For 31 years, I carried that memory. I buried it. I denied it. I convinced myself it was a dream, but it wasn't a dream. It was real, and it shaped everything about who I became. He talked for over an hour. He talked about his childhood, about his mother's death, about meeting Elena, about Lily's birth and Elena's cancer, and the crushing weight of medical debt that had brought him back to the motel in the first place. He talked about opening room 9, about finding Raymond's tape, about the terror of realizing that his father had been complicit in a murder, about the slow, painful process of understanding that Walter Cole had been a victim too. He talked about Tommy Mallory, about Jennifer's sacrifice, about the trial and the verdict, and the moment when justice finally arrived 26 years too late. And he talked about Angela, about the letter that had arrived that morning, about meeting a sister he never knew he had, about the realization that his father's secrets were still emerging even from the grave. I don't know how many more truths are out there. I don't know how many more people my father hurt by staying silent. But I know this. Every truth that comes to light is a victory. Every secret that gets told is a chain that gets broken. Every voice that speaks is a soul that gets freed. He looked directly at the microphone. My name is Marcus Cole. I am Walter Cole's son. I am Angela Whitfield's brother. I am Lily's father. I am the keeper of Room 9, and I am done being afraid of the truth. He turned off the recording equipment. The room was silent, but it was a different kind of silence now, not the heavy, oppressive silence of buried secrets. The light, peaceful silence of truths finally told. Marcus stood and walked to the door. He placed his hand on the frame, feeling the wood beneath his palm, thinking about all the hands that had touched this same spot over the years. Raymond Wells checking in for what would be the last time. Walter Cole sealing the room to hide his guilt. Marcus himself prying open the door after 26 years. And now hundreds of strangers stepping across the threshold to tell their stories. Thank you, Marcus whispered to the empty room. Thank you for waiting for me. He walked outside and stood in the courtyard of the Desert Wind Motel. The night was clear. Stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on velvet. A warm wind blew across the desert, carrying the smell of sage and the promise of tomorrow. Marcus thought about Elena, about what she would say if she could see what he had built. He knew exactly what she would say because she had said it to him 1,000 times during their years together. The truth is heavy, but it's lighter than the weight of silence. He had never fully understood what she meant. Not until now. The motel that had been his father's prison had become his liberation. The room that had held a dead man's voice had become a sanctuary for the living. The secrets that had destroyed his family had become the foundation for something new, something beautiful, something true. Marcus Cole looked up at the stars and smiled. He had opened a door that was never supposed to be opened. He had heard a voice that was never supposed to be heard. He had told a truth that was never supposed to be told, and in doing so, he had finally set himself free. Room 9 was not just a room anymore. It was a beacon. It was a promise. It was proof that no matter how deep the darkness, no matter how long the silence, the truth will always find its way into the light. And Marcus Cole would be there to hear it. For as long as he lived. For as many voices as needed to speak. Because that was his truth now. That was his legacy. That was the story he would tell for the rest of his days. Some rooms are never checked out of. Some voices are never silenced. Some truths are never buried. And some men, ordinary men, broken men, afraid men find the courage to open the doors that everyone else walks past. Marcus Cole was one of those men. And his story was finally complete.